Cold at the touch, dead in the eyes, no signs of life no more. I put your love under the knife. Leave me to die here all alone. No signs of life no more, no. A crying dove may never fly. Black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Oh, 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 oh. Just black and white. No more. Black and white, just let me go. It's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico, it's black and white. White, white, white. Just let me go. It's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico, it's black and white. White, white, white. Black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Oh, 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 oh. Just black and white. Black and white.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Simracersworld TV. My name is Hasse Rømer. I'm joined in the booth by Edward May, and we are here for the TPI LMP2 finale from Sebring, the final round of the Apex Tech LMP2 Championship, the all-deciding one. And I am so excited to be here alongside Edward, of course, to commentate on this race, as the LMP2 car, the Dallara P217, holds a dear place in my heart indeed. Edward, Sebring, it's gonna be bumpy, it's gonna be fast, it's gonna be furious indeed. What are your expectations for what we're about to see here tonight?
Well, I'm hoping for much the same that we've seen all season long. Thank you very much, Hasse. Yes, and welcome onto this final round of the Apex Tech LMP2 Championship. This is going to be a day into sunset race, so we will be able to have the joy of seeing these LMP2s lit with the sun falling through Sunset Bend. It's going to be brilliant to watch, and of course we come on the back off of a excellent round at the Red Bull Ring. Hasse, just a couple of weeks ago we saw, well, maybe not the pair of us saw, it was actually, I believe it was, who was it? It was Alex Everett, I think, who was in the comms box with good friend of ours, Marcus, as well. Marcus, you have to forgive me, Hasse, if I butcher his name. You'll probably know better than I. Gisdal?
Gisdal.
Gisdal.
Marcus Gisdal in Norwegian, but I'm not Norwegian, of course.
And they were treated to an excellent race. I was watching the broadcast back and we saw an Apex Tech 1-2, the first of the season. Chris Barrett and Jamie Conway finishing first and second with race clutch, where you can't keep them fully off the podium because Peter Zuber got onto the bottom step there. It's interesting as well to see Peter Molnar not make his attendance known there. He was on holiday, but he's back now and really trying to put a message out that he's going to fight for this championship till the very last moment. And of course, the AM class was very exciting as well. I'm having a look at some of these standings now coming into this final round. Counting for drop rounds, 203 points to Benson Timothy, with Peter Zuber here only 6 points away from the overall pro class lead. Peter Molnar, another race clutch racing driver, 186 points and just 5 away from Chris Barrett, who's in fourth. So third and fourth, very close indeed as well. So keep your eyes open for Chris. He's been showing a very good turn of pace in these past few days. He could be one to watch. And then into the AM category, the AM Championship, Theo Schlerer is actually on top. Had a very off-colour round, if memory serves right, at Austria at the Red Bull Ring, finishing down 6th in class, 14th overall. So a little bit strange for the Frenchman that we've seen dominating the championship, at least in the AMs, for the past few rounds. 7 points behind himself in the lead is James Ebram, second place in the AM category. What can the Apex Tech racing driver pull out of the hat in these final few moments of qualifying, where we can see, can't we, Hasse, at the moment he's doing exactly what he needs to do, because he's on the top step of the AM qualifying standings.
Yeah, absolutely so. And this is one of these tracks where, of course, overtaking, well, it is possible, but it's in no way easy. They do have straights, but it's one of those tracks where if you do expose yourself, and especially over those first few laps of racing, well, you could see attacks coming left, right, and center. If you try to be the attacker yourself. Sebring as well, also known for its bumps in one corner in particular. And you've mentioned it already, Edward. It is, of course, Sunset, the final corner of the track here. And that is going to prove to be a challenge indeed. I think in these cars, setup all important in the LMP2. And, well, you'll need something that can handle the bumps as well as the relatively tall curbs here, as Peter Zuber has quite a bit of a moment there. He gets onto the straight that leads down towards the hairpin. I actually think this corner is named the Big Bend. And, well, it's a relatively straight bend indeed. But it's a bend with a name here, the hairpin. And onto the concrete slabs that really tell the story of this racetrack, Edward. A former World War II airbase that's been converted into a racetrack, and it's been so for many, many years indeed. It's not really seen a lot of change over the years, and it's one of those places where you can come close to racing as it was back in the days.
Yeah, it's a very tricky circuit to obviously set up for. You want to have it nice and stiff to have that quick responsiveness in the car, but not too stiff so that the car will get absolutely rattled to the bone through the bumps. So it's very difficult, of course, to manage it. And then you have to get a good balance between straight line speed for this area coming into Sunset, but also a nice bit of downforce, good speed through the corners for the rest of the circuit. And it's all about getting the car in the best window. What can Peter Zuber do now coming into Sunset? Just behind Benson and Matey in terms of qualifying, less than a tenth of a second in it, and then chooses a very strange pit entry. I don't think that would fly in the race, but this is, of course, qualifying. Anything goes. I think we've seen near enough all of the pro drivers out on the circuit. Theo Schneider, he likes to leave it late, Hasse, in terms of qualifying. His first lap there, 1 minute 47.1, a little bit shy of the top times. If he can shave that. Well, actually, it's quite a way off the top times because James Ebram, where has that lap time come from? He's nearly a full second faster than Theo Schneider with a 1 minute 46.17. So a cracking effort there from James Ebram. More than half a second clear of the rest, I think.
Yeah, and that really goes
maybe not more than half a second, but definitely close.
It's very close to indeed, and it goes to show that it's one of those tracks where confidence really means so much. And if you know the perfect line through a corner, especially here, like the next one, Jean de Bien, there's the next right-hander he'll be coming up to here, Theo, which is certainly a difficult one indeed. It sets you up for what is the name of this corner, Le Mans? Is it?
Le Mans, yeah.
Le Mans, indeed, would set you up for the back straight. And that's sort of the history of Sebring, isn't it? That you always have to consider not only your entry speed, but very much so the exit speed onto all these long straight bits. Something that's worth taking into consideration. And this is...
Speaking of, actually, Hasse as well, you've reminded me something about Le Mans. It was today, the final few moments of Le Mans just happened, and I'm not sure if you've been able to catch it, Hasse, but let's hope that the LMP2s might have a little bit of excitement that we saw in the closing stages of that race as well, because I'll tell you what, the LMP2s, those final few moments were absolutely electric.
But you have to say that the LMP2s does make for some of the best racing in general when it comes to endurance racing. I think it's been fantastic to see, and the privateer teams and the sort of gentleman drivers that many of the teams are forced to race with as well in the Pro-Am series. That is in real life. It's grand to see indeed here. Hugo Preto, the Portuguese driver for Apex Tech, racing in the 77 machine, making his way around what I believe will be his... I don't know if he'll actually be able to pull out one final lap. And I'm a little surprised to see that no other cars are qualifying. They could be limited on laps here, which could be the case, but... surely you'd expect someone to try and go out late and set a time indeed here. Track temp 26 degrees centigrade, so certainly a relatively cool track, and I think the drivers will appreciate that once it comes down to the tire management.
Yeah, I think that's the ambient air temperature. It's 26. Track temperature 33. Has climbed just the touch, but it will obviously get cooler as the sun begins to set. We're approaching, I think, 5 o'clock in sim time. I think that's when the race is scheduled to get underway. But of course, as well, as we see Hugo Preto come through for what we expect to be his final effort in qualifying. They have 3 laps to complete in 15 minutes. I think this is Hugo Preto's third and final attempt. He'll come across the line now. And what will it be? Any improvement on the 47.46? Yes, it's a definite improvement of 46.2. So shaving more than a second off his time. Definitely making some quick progress up the grid there. Last of the drivers actually on the grid is Carlos Ponce. And what happened here? So this was coming into Le Mans. Oh, a bit too much off the curb on the way in. And just clatters into the wall.
Absolutely so. And yeah, it makes sense why he chose to call it a quit on that lap. The timer is now ticked over, and with that, we will indeed have the grid order for you to see on display right about here. If we would just have iRacing to be so kind as to actually tick the session over. Somehow, drivers are leaving the pits here.
That's because, sorry to say that they have a warm-up session going on now. So the drivers are acclimatizing to track conditions just a little bit, and then we'll be able to see them actually get up and racing. So, again, a few quirks of the Apex Tech series, but it gives us time, doesn't it, Hasse, to digest what an exciting qualifying session that was.
Absolutely so, and I think it's nice to also, as a driver, knowing this, just to get a chance to feel the car on race fuel, and just as you say, acclimatize to the slight differences here. As Carlos Ponce, he's finding it a little bit difficult indeed entering the hairpin. Here's Rømer, who put his car, well, did he even? I was just about to say so, I don't think he did, but regardless, in the 107 car, he's charging ahead. And we'll have to see just what the outcome of this race indeed is here. In the AM class, in the Pro class as well. Of course, remind you, the split for the two classes is an I rating of 2500. So the Pro drivers will have started the season above. And the AM drivers will obviously have started the season below. And a little bit of bonus info here for the viewers out there. But I was actually very, very close to racing this series as well, and getting involved. I am, as I said, I am. Well, I do hold the LMP2 dear. I find it a lot of fun to race, and I've done it for quite a bit as well. So it felt quite natural. Schedules didn't quite fit. That was a bit of a bummer indeed. Hoping maybe to be able to attend. If there is a season 3, well, I certainly would love to. And with that said, well, that would be in the AM class indeed, I think, with an I rating of just about 2400.
Yeah, Hasse, you are Simracersworld TV's very own resident LMP2 fanboy. But what is about this car that you've just become so drawn towards?
Well, it's the liveliness of the machine and the combination with the sort of ease of use you find through some of the quicker bits that often is challenging in GT machines and such. And it's the noise and the speed and the feel of the car. Just it's amazing fun to drive. It feels so direct. It feels so lively, and it's a great machine to drive. It's challenging, but ultimately hugely rewarding, I think, and also to my style of driving, I think it fits quite well. I like something that handles on minimal input, and you have to say that this is one of those cars where you really have to be able to be smooth to be fast.
Yeah, it is. Like you mentioned, yeah, you do need to be very smooth, and that's going to be key for many areas of the circuit. Of course, going into the final sector through Sunset, also into the first corner, you don't want to be too spicy there, as Ooh, yeah. A little bit of spice going on the circuit there, Hasse.
Yeah, Daniel Nunez finding it, well, the track could have been a meter or two wider for him there, and he got all over the curb. And that's something you in particular want to avoid with these machines, because they do take that floor damage quite easily. And even the rear side of the car, if you go across a curb with the engine, so to say, it's very, very easy to damage the engine and lose some critical power right there. It's something that the car doesn't take too well upon itself, so you want to make sure to not only keep it clean in terms of not hitting the walls, but with this particular car you actually really want to keep it on the tarmac, because even an excursion on the grass or something like that could spell trouble.
Yeah, and trouble is one thing you really don't want, especially in the early stages of these races, because they do go for a full 2-hour length. And let's watch Hans Blankart getting a little bit of practice in, obviously using the warm-up to most of his ridge, getting accustomed to the car with a full tank of fuel. Rømer's actually fastest of the AMs in this session so far. But I'll tell you what, I think the other driver that used the 107 is a bit of a weapon, I think.
Absolutely.
Maybe not Rømer, but there's another driver, isn't there, that uses the 107 on Simracersworld TV. Not sure who they are, but I hear they are a little bit of a weapon.
Well, I'm not quite sure what you're insinuating there, what I have to admit. But I think, though, all those things aside, we do have the grid order with Benz Nemeth for race clutch ahead of teammates Peter Zuber, and 1, 2, 3 with Peter Molnar in third position ahead of Chris Barrett for Apex Tech Racing. Jamie Conway in fifth for Apex Tech as well, ahead of James Ibram. Then Hugo Preto rounds out the pro field in seventh ahead of Rømer, Kamal Hashemi and Theo Schleret, ahead of Alvaro Ferrandez and Hans Blankart. That's going to be in 12th place overall. 13th, well, if the grid would just be so lovely to actually... Yeah, thank you. Mark Winters for Digital Downforce Racing in the 1-2-3 machine, 13th, ahead of Daniel Nunez for ENCC. Alexander Rockenbuch, the privateer, is in 15th place ahead of Jacob Money and Carlos Ponce in the 101 car for Iridium Motorsports. And with that said, I think it's about to be race time here, Edward.
Yes, it is. So we will have a full lap behind the safety car. Plenty of time for the drivers to get accustomed and try and warm up their tyres, because these LMP2s, they are a little bit dangerous on the first opening laps of the race. Good to see, though, plenty of AM drivers out on the grid. Of course, last season's champion, Jacob Money, there towards the rear of the field for Positively Racing. Haven't seen him too much this season, but good to finally have him back out with us on track. As well, though, who's going to be coming out on top in the pro class? Benson Mathy doing very good for race clutch, in addition to Peter Molnar and Peter Zuber trying to hold off a very resurgent Apex Tech Racing charge of Chris Barrett, Jamie Conway and Hugo Preto all behind them. So it will be 3 against 3 for the start of the race in the pro division. It's all about who's going to come out on top, who is going to join Maxime Brient as last season champion and become an Apex Technologies LMP2 Championship champion. Maxime Brient, like I mentioned, winning last season's Pro Division Championship. Jacob Money winning last season's AM class. We're definitely not going to be seeing any 2 times champions this time out, but which new face will it be? Going to the top of the pack, will it be current championship leader Benson Mathy, who is on pole position, or will Peter Zuber, who put it on second place from qualifying, be able to challenge him? Like we said, 5 points, actually no, only 6 points rather, separating these top 2 drivers in the pro class. And can Chris Barrett try and get one over on Peter Molnar and get into 3rd place in the pro class? Plenty to go and try and think about. And as well, all eyes need to be on the AM Championship, because James Ibram has put himself in a wonderful position, Hasse, to try and take top step of the AM class. Only 7 points in it. Theo Schleret, his nearest rival, starting down in, I believe, 5th place in the AM class. And if that's where he finishes, I don't think that's going to be enough.
That's a very good point indeed. We'll have to follow that, of course. It's not going to be at the end of lap 1, it's decided, but it could all be lost right there. But 2 hours of racing coming up. And mind you, we're expecting cars to pit in for fuel about every 30 minutes or so. And the drivers will be doing their best, I think, to stretch it past the 30 minutes to keep it on 3 pit stops. Usually we see tire stops about the 1 hour mark. And, well, that should set it up for a strategically sound race. As the field is bunching up here, and it should at least be bunching up. I think they want to avoid having the gaps too strung out here. The race clutch cars being a bit late, but of course, something said that you can use the brakes late on here to try and build some heat in the wheels themselves and well, in conjunction with that, the tires. So important for the start of this race. Now the field round Sunset Corner. We're about to go racing for 2 hours here at Sebring. The TPI LMP2 finale is about to kick off here with Ben Snemethi, Peter Super, and Peter Molnar. 1, 2, 3 for race clutch in the pro class, and here they are, green, and go, go, go. And let's see who gets the best run. That's Peter Molnar, already getting a good run on his namesake into turn 1, and I think that's a done deal already. Let's see further down, and there's plenty of more action. Oh, several cars there onto the right, or onto the grass, off the track, I meant to say, and action into Christensen here, Edward.
Yeah, plenty of chopping and changing going on. James Ebram has been able to consolidate the lead of the AM class at the moment, is going away just behind Jamie Conway. Looking at all of the action though, Apex Tech had a very good start. Chris Barrett up into the top 3. That was what he was hoping for, to get a good start, but oh my word, there's a coming together. 2 Apex Tech cars have a collision. Jamie Conway and Hugo Preto. Was that Hugo just getting a little bit too loose on the throttle coming through the hairpin? I think it was. Went into the path of Jamie Conway, and that's both of them with, yeah, that was just too much power, maybe snagging a little bit of the inside on the grass perhaps as well, but he just span across the path of his teammate, caused a big collision. Other cars in the background as well having to check up to avoid. Fernandez Montes getting spun around there. You can just see Theo Schlerer navigating that nice and safely, so he's gotten through that without too many dramas. Of course, don't forget, no fast repairs for any of the drivers in this race. They need to keep it very clean. 2 wide in the background though. Oh, a big moment there. Was that that was definitely a coming together between someone. Was that Hans Blankart and Jamie Conway perhaps? Jamie having a race to forget.
Absolutely, it was. Let's just see what happened here. The 2 drivers did make a slight bit of contact in Le Mans, I think. Let's see here, slow it down for a second. Now on the inside is Blancard. He does sort of make the apex, but he slides all of a sudden. I think it's a little bit of a netcode. He gets picked up there, it seems, by the nose cone of Jamie Conway's car.
It's a very dirty word in iRacing, is netcode, but he just about manages to keep out of the wall, does Jamie Conway, which alleviates some of the damages he probably would have been suffering. And that means that it's not physical to his car, but mainly bruised on his mind about how he's going to go about getting this race back to the way he was hoping it would go. That's done his championship a definite blow, though, to say the least. Look at that, though. Roy Mars racing very hard with Kamal Hashimi as James Ebram has actually dropped back. And what has happened to what was second place in the championship as it stood coming into this round, but he was our pole sitter.
And he's lost a few positions, but I think that was from the incident in the hairpin, as he had to take evasive action, go onto the grass to avoid his spinning teammates up ahead, and he just about managed to do so actually without hurting his car in any way. So I think James Abram is going to take that over any of the other potential outcomes that could have been in such a situation here, and he's by no means dislodged from the front end of the AM pack here. Roy Mars, Kamal Hashimi, James Ibram very close to one another, and then Peter Super on the tail of these 4. Further down you can see, I think that is Jacob Money with company from Theo Schleret, and then two of the pro drivers who've had a bit of trouble there. That's Hugo Preto and Jamie Conway, very close to one another as well. So it's all kicking off here. Only about 4 minutes of racing done here at Sebring as we're coming on to lap 3. And, well, hefty stuff indeed.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, this was the start of the race that Vincent Matthew would have been hoping for his championship hopes. His nearest rival, Peter Zuber, 6 points back at the start of the evening, is down in 4th position. With Roy Mars in the buffer between the front 3 and the chasing Peter Zuber. This, though, the nice 1-4-2 of Jacob Money having a good race. This is what happened to Daniel Nunes earlier on. Oh, a massive, massive twitch.
Oh,
on
and
the
he
exit.
hits.
Oh, the car that's off the circuit. Oh my word, was that Alexander Roggenbuck he hit? Yes, that was the 170 of Alexander Roggenbuck. And then I think he tagged another car that came by. However, I think they carried on. There was a damage. There's a lot of damage, though, to Daniel Nunes. Suspension damage for definite. This is what happened to Roggenbuck.
Oh, that's a
definite netcode there. That's
huge
helping of netcode that went on there.
That's quite terrible to see, to be honest, here, as they're all swarming around Jacob Money at the moment here. And you could say that Jamie Conway is on the money as he's really trying. Go left, right. Now he's on the outside through the double left-hander here, but he will make it, I think. Yes, indeed. And late braking here as Jacob Money thinks to, I think, approach the race maybe later than well, right now, as we're just about 5 minutes into it. It's been an atrocious few minutes here to start the race off here, Edward, and more smoke.
Yeah, there's something might have gone on in the pit lane. Maybe a car engine has blown or something when they came into the pits. We'll have a look here. This was Alexander Roggenbuck making his way. Oh, actually, might have been a bit of smoke from, well, maybe not from that amount of slide, but Alexander Roggenbuck definitely in the wars. You can see the rear of the car, not at all the right Dallara LMP2 shape. Benson Mather, they're having a wonderful start, you have to say, leading ahead of Peter Molnar. Chris Barrett, his hopes is just to stick there and try and be in with a shout towards the latter stages. As long as he at least gives himself the opportunity to capitalize, that is going to be key for him. Currently sitting 4th in the overall championship standings in the pro class as well. He just needs to try and get one over on Peter Molnar and hope that that will be enough to secure 3rd place in the championship. Then our focus is going to shift a little bit further back to see Theo Schleret in the 172. You can tell the difference between the pros and the AMs, of course, by the different coloured number boards and the fact that the numbers start with a 1 on our triple digits for the AMs, double digits for the pros. This though, closing in on Theo Schleret is Hugo Preto, but isn't close enough to make a move. Having to sort themselves out as they make their way through Le Mans now and onto this long straight. Definite run into sunset if you can get it nicely nailed, but I think they are, well, just about equal. It could be a late lunge being made. Just a little bit of a look to the inside. I don't know if he's actually going to go for it or not. Actually,
Oh,
Theo
yes!
I think chooses to let that one happen. You can see the wide approach Theo made into the corner. Didn't really want to fight too much, of course. Pros and AMs, they can't take points away from each other. And yeah, you can definitely see Theo lifting out of that one, allowing the pro drivers to come through, and then actually might be using them to save a bit of fuel. This is what happened to Peter Zuber. I think it was him getting ahead of Rømer. Easy overtake that from the number 9 race clutch. Always difficult though, isn't it, Hasse, when you have to go for a move down the inside, because it forces you a little bit off your line into what is probably one of the hardest circuits on the one of the hardest corners on the circuit.
Very much so, and I think one of the hardest corners around in general. It presents you with some of the worst possible combinations. I think it's a really high-speed entrance to a corner that kind of goes a little bit right and then tightens quite a lot and tightens at the end as well. And add to that those huge, terrible bumps, especially one bump that's around the late apex, like right around the apex, where you actually want to miss the apex of Sunset, because that is a huge bump indeed. That'll offset a car like this easily if you treat it just slightly wrong. So sunset, as we mentioned before, it is going to be a key point for the drivers to get right time and time again for 2 hours here. And mind you, 2 hours is not a minuscule amount of time in these cars, especially if you have drivers that are on direct drive wheels that'll give you the full-fledged force of well, downforce and all the, especially at a track like Sebring as well, you're going to be fighting the steering wheel if there's a lot of force coming through it, and it's going to be physically quite demanding for the drivers here. There's a pass going on up ahead, and I think that's Jamie Conway getting it done on Hugo Preto in that situation. Preto's going into the pits here. That's very early, and slightly surprised to see that here, Edward.
What might have happened is Hugo Preto has been running qualifying fuel and has not been able to fill up for the race. Has been running the qualifying setup with that amount of fuel on board, so has opted to come into the pits early as a result of that. However, should the drivers not be able to make it to the half-hour mark on fuel and need to opt for a splash and dash, effectively what Hugo Preto has done is taken his splash early, and as long as he can go through without any further dramas, and other drivers do need to take a splash and dash, this shouldn't hurt him too much. However, if the drivers around him in his class, the likes of your Peter Molnars, your Benson Matthews, your Chris Barretts, your Peter Zubers, are able to extend their stints and able to make the race on 3 stops alone, that's when we're going to see Hugo Preto's race result really begin to struggle. So keeping our eyes on that, I think, Hasse, for the moment. Peter Molnar definitely, though, closing in to Benson Matthews. Now, they are teammates. I don't expect them to race hard at this stage of the race. However, Peter Molnar is in a good spot, Hasse, to save lots and lots of fuel. Very
much so, and impressive to see Peter Molnar, who came from third on the grid and wasn't really able to challenge Peter Subo or Benson Matthews on the qualifying pace, but he certainly seems to know just how to bring his car around quickly here on race setup, because he's just clinging on to the rear end of the Matthews, and he's, by all means, he's close enough to be saving a lot of fuel, and I don't think he'd like to maybe push even further in, because there is to a certain extent at least, quite a bit of dirty air with these cars as well when you get close to the car ahead, especially in the faster corners. But a lot of straights here at Sebring, and a lot of hard braking zones, and a lot of situations where if you just looked at the track map, you'd think, hey, that's a good overtaking opportunity, but the bumpiness of the track and the nature of the circuit in itself, the small twists and turns here and there, like the exit of the hairpin and such, well, it all makes it that little bit more complicated, and it's by no means an easy place to figure out. Now we got a few cars kind of getting close to one another. Here is Alvaro Fernandez, and he's on the tail of Jacob Money, and behind these two is Hans Blankard. And Blankard, who's found himself in a bit of trouble there, makes a nice apex though, and a very good exit, and you can see Blankard gaining on the car ahead. He'll have a prime view on the battle coming up ahead, and you can see as well in the braking zones he gets visibly closer to Alvaro Fernandez up ahead. So you'll be hoping, I think, to be able to get that move done sooner rather than later. It's that quo up ahead, still about half a second between the two leaders. And I think you're right on the fact that they're probably not going to battle, at least not too hard from the start of the race. And maybe if it's still status quo when we get into the final 30 minutes, we might see a bit of action heating up. But you'd expect it to be kept clean here, as I think that's Jacob Money who goes... Oh, Jacob Money's got a slowdown, I think, and has had to really allow the rest of the cars to go by. So, last season's AM champion, who's decided to come back out for another race this season. Great to see him, of course. Actually, opted to come into the pits now. What on earth is going on there? Is that another case of opting for an early splash and dash, Hasse? Well, it could be. It's hard to know, but if the drivers have figured out that they just won't be able to make that half hour anyway, then it makes sense to start on less fuel and then kind of divide one of the stints at least. So that could be what they're doing. It's hard to know when you don't see the data from the cars or the, well, amount of fuel in, but it's certainly something I think a lot of people have tried in iRacing, to start a race on a qualifying setup and then be forced in at some point, but I'd just be surprised to see anyone be able to run 8 laps on a qualifying setup. It could be a little bit of damage that they want to get fixed or dented out. It's hard to say, and I don't think we'll be able to do much more than just guess about it at the moment. But what we can see here is Hans Blankert in the 133 machine still gaining on Fernandez ahead on the 176, and seems very poised here as the car seems to get rotating as well. And that's a tricky point for it to do so. You have to be careful. As I'm afraid, Edward, we've had a problem for Alexander Roggenbuch.
Oh dear, so Alexander's already had a few moments, and again through sunset, locking up the brakes to keep the trajectory sort of predictable, and then he tries to get it moving before any cars come by, and actually opts to come into the pits. Yeah, definite damage there, looking to get the car fixed up. I think that was actually the lead as against the Matthew Peter Molnar we saw in that shot coming through. As we watch Alvaro Fernandez Montes coming through on Hans Blankert. Good little scrap between these two, isn't it, Hasse, for 5th place in the AM class. Oh, his hand's going to go for it. Yes, he is. What a lunge into the first corner. Is he going to be vulnerable, though, from a switchback maneuver? No, he isn't. That was a great overtake there into the first corner from Hans Blankert.
That was absolutely excellent, but you could actually see before that Blankert did actually hit that that bumpy bit there on the inside of Sunset. But he comes from sort of a long way back there, but the door's open and he decisively moves in. I think he scoped that opportunity out on the laps that came before this one and just kind of felt that, hey, I can carry quite a lot of speed more there in turn 1, so I'm just going to go for it, and he did. And to be honest, it is one of those places where as soon as you get a car on the inside, you kind of know that's game over. Very risky to go through there at 220, 230 kilometers an hour, which these machines will, well, quite easily do in that through that corner. Oh, Hans Blankert, though, picking up a bit of gravel. That might open the door for Fernandez, though I think he's just a little bit too far back to be able to take advantage in that situation. And yes, indeed, just hangs out without that around that half a second in between. 16
lap times at the front of the field, though.
That's incredible. They're lapping just under a second quicker than Chris Barrett, and Peter Suber actually on a very good pace as well, just a few tenths off of his 2 teammates up ahead here. But the Hungarians in race clutch are really putting down the pace for the time being. No one really able to respond to it. It's the 47 of championship leading Ben Snemefi, leading Peter Molnar, and then Chris Barrett in the 24 car for Apex Tech Racing, third at the moment, ahead of the 9 car of Peter Suber. And the leading AMP driver at the moment is Rømer with a 2.3 second advantage over James Abrams, who he's actually gotten past on Kamal Hashimi, so whatever that happened, we didn't quite catch it. We'll do our best to go back through the archives and see if we can dig it up, and here it is. And you have to wonder, Edward, if that's sort of a slowdown or something for Kamal there. Oh, there comes the overtake. So it's the double whammy. But he... Okay, so I'm a little bit at a loss here. He got overtaken in that situation, but yet he is indeed ahead of Kamal Hashimi, who's a few seconds down now on James Ebram. You could see that from right before. And then Jamie Conway trying to get back on level terms with the leading pro drivers. He's charging at the moment. Meanwhile,
this is definitely the race, though, that, well, James Ebram will be hoping for, because Theo Schlerer isn't really on the pace, is he? It might still be enough for Theo if he can hold this position, but ideally, to give himself the best chance of taking the AM Championship, he needs to finish at least on the podium and hope that, obviously, and account for the drop rounds and the bonus points that will favour him, it'll come out on top. Of course, there's little quirks of this series that mean we don't necessarily know if we can crown the championship based on the race result. It's all down to these little quirks of the series, which has allowed it to be just so close up until this final round, as we see Daniel Nunes having another moment, this time though through Sunset Bend. His car in a better shape as there you go, Preto. Oh, sends it to the corner. It takes too much speed. He gets on the brakes, locks up, and has a second collision. Oh my word. Very, very aggressive stuff as we see. I think that was Tio Sherry very slow coming out of the hairpin there.
Yeah, and Alvaro Fernandez has had a problem as well, and he's been off for quite a few seconds, so I'm a bit interested to see just what happened to him there. Oh, gets too much of the curb, slides across and into the soft barrier. That's probably gonna cause a slight bit of aero damage to the nose cone of the car, though he could actually get away with that. But even with a bit of damage, I think it's only gonna be a few seconds for the pit crew to be able to change out the bodywork parts, which is relatively easily done on these machines, and it's reflected in the time taken to repair. You often find yourself sitting no more than, well, a few seconds, 10, 20 seconds for heavy aero damage, but of course once you get into the deeper workings of the car, it gets much more complicated for the mechanics as well. As we're back with the Tio Schlerer.
That was very close to the wall. Yeah, you could hear that as there was a definite clip. And is that end plate of the wing fully straight, or has that been slightly tagged? Let's have a look. For me, on that right-hand side, is there a little bit of damage there, Hasse? Just a touch, maybe.
I don't think there is. It shows quite evidently, especially at the bottom of the back end and the sort of lower corners. It's very evident down towards the diffuser is what it's called. My apologies. And so actually, I think he's just about gotten away with that one. But that doesn't mean that he would do so again. And if you're unlucky and scrape something with the wheel, you can very easily bend a push rod or something like that and end up with a car that certainly doesn't handle like it's supposed to. So I'd advise our drivers, Tio Schlerer and the rest of them as well, to sort of just keep a bit of distance to that apex there. It's a dangerous corner to be chasing the margins in, but of course they would have done their practice here. Meeting the apex nicely here at Tio Schlerer as well. He knows, I think as well, as you mentioned, he's got a lot to race for here tonight, Edward. And he's finding his rhythm now. On the last lap, it was a 150.2 for him, so that was actually sort of slow, and he lost quite a bit of time to Kamal Hashemi, who's sitting there.
Hasse, sorry, I've just noticed Spencer Matthew with the fastest lap of the race. A cracking effort, this from the race clutch leader of the race, who is doing all he can to try and get this championship victory, with Peter Molnar right behind him in second place. You know, that Beds has been a class act all season long. Had, I think, a bit of a hiccup early doors in the season. Again, another little bit of a moment in just the last race gone. Obviously, when race got slipped up and Apex Tech took that 1-2 race result. However, this time it's back to winning ways, it seems. Of course, we cannot count the race just on the first 22 minutes, but it is looking very good for Beds the Mathy.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. He's got a teammate behind who seems to be keeping up well, but is not really pushing into the advantage up ahead there. And that's might be the game they're playing. But at the moment, judging by the lap times, it is indeed Bench the Matthew who does sit on a healthy advantage. And who does seem every bit in control at the moment. Here's Kamal Hashemi, who now has to deal with Jamie Conway. Now I'd be surprised if he doesn't just let the Brit through there on the 42 car. Might not happen immediately, but it's gonna happen quickly, because as you mentioned earlier, there is no reason for the drivers in the two classes to fight for overall positions, as they aren't really able to take points away from one another. And that said, I think if you had an AM driver leading overall, certainly you'd see him try to hold on to that overall lead, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, if it was for an overall leader, an overall podium, then maybe you'd see a bit of fighting, but there not really any fight there from Kamal Hashemi, not least because they're teammates, obviously, to Apex Tech Racing drivers swapping place and choosing not to squabble amongst each other. As we watch Rømer as well, who's actually set the fastest lap of the race so far in the AM class with a 47.07. Great effort there from Roy. Again, I'm trying not to be biased because he's running my lovely number 107, but still, it's a good effort from the Stage 1 Racing driver who's, I think he's been having a good turn of form in the past few rounds. At least from what I can remember seeing of him, he's definitely come on leaps and bounds since early doors in the season. He's had a few hiccups mid-season, but coming back on form.
Yeah, evidently so, and he seems in tune and in touch with the car here at Sebring. It's important to be. He's seems to be safely extracting quite a lot from his machine, and James Abram 3.5 seconds down, and at this point of the race, well, we're expecting the first pit stops to happen in 5-6 minutes, so we'll have to follow on and see how that progresses as well. But we've seen quite a bit of attrition here early days, and I think we would have loved to see a race that was still maybe a little bit closer in that sense, because it always tends to spread out proceedings when you have those kind of early incidents that will throw a spanner into the works of everyone. And it's you could say the same for James Abram, but he is now back up into second place in that class, and as such he's sitting in a good position. I'm watching him and Theo Schleray, because those two will be having a battle for that AM championship.
Yeah, these two are definitely going to be fighting very close. James Abram now with the fastest lap in the AM class. So he's turning up the pace and trying to take back the lead of the race. This is, again, another clip to the wall from Theo Schlery. He's getting ever so close, really trying to test his car to the limits. It's just not really paying him back with any sort of results. He's trying to make inroads. I'm looking at the times between himself and Kamal Hashimi. Again, another moment. He's really trying to close in, and actually Hans Blanca is the faster of these drivers. So we're going to go on board here. Look at Theo Schlery. Looks to try and get the late apex, but on the power that a little bit too early. Gets off the throttle when the car's over onto the dirt. Obviously doesn't want to risk spinning the car out, but all that time lost has brought Hans Blanca into the mix. All the while, though, Theo Schlery has been trying to close into Kamal Hashmi. We just saw on board as well. Hasse, I think you were just about to mention fuel saving massively into the braking zones.
Yeah, absolutely so, and using the clutch to do so, which of course saves a little bit of extra fuel, but also has the side effect of putting the weight balance a little differently if you just let off the throttle. And while drivers that are really good at fuel saving with the clutch down, well, they can indeed gain a little bit extra on it, but it's not something that I've ever found helpful. I've found it easier to just let the engine brake help me with the braking as I'm coming into the braking zones. But I was noticing another thing as we had that moment for Theo Schleray before. He seems to be putting in maybe a little bit too much steering input in some of the corners as he attacks him, and maybe leaning onto the understeer a little bit too much. And that's an excellent save though from Theo Schleray, almost losing it there at the exit of Sunset. And that is where you can see he is really pushing at the moment. Here into turn 1 we go. Oh, close to the wall there. That's what you want to do it. And you got a little bit of extra space there to utilize on the exit now. Christensen.
So many drivers actually, Hasse. I've just noticed. Sorry to cut across. Look how many drivers are in the pits. This is going to be a really interesting race because splashes and dashes are almost certainly going to come into account for the likes of, well, Roy Maas, AM class leader, Hans Blanca, who I believe was just chasing down Theo Schlery, and Mark Winters as well. So much to think about, Hasse. Not least the just twitchiness of Theo Schleray's car, but also all of the difference in strategy going on.
Yeah, indeed, and I'm surprised to see that well, I'm actually, it's not that surprising. It's a few drivers just acknowledging that, well, they're not going to be able to fuel save enough to actually make it last, and as such, probably better off just going balls to the wall, if you will, and as you can see, it's not only the AM drivers who are struggling with the same things here as first, second, and third in the pro class coming in, and I think we'll see Peter Zuber coming in as well. And that's a minute and a half or so short of the 30 minutes marker of this race. Of course, it'll take a bit of time in the pits as well. But if they don't increase their fuel saving throughout this race, they won't make it on 3 stops. That much is for sure. And that actually could be the decider in the end. Look at this here, James Ebram. He's going to make it. He's going to do it alongside Kamal Hashimi. And with that, if they can do that for the entirety of the race and still keep them just somewhat within touch of the pro class leaders, we could look at quite a bit of an offset here at the end, and an upset, if you will, because we could actually be looking at an AM driver taking the win if they manage to do a pit stop less.
Yeah, that does have a big asterisk though, if they can do a pit stop less and if they can carry on the pace to stay in front come the end of the race. Of course, there is 1.5 hours still expected to be run by all of these drivers already out on the track. Got this there, James Ebram. He's going to be enjoying this, isn't he? Leading the race. And maybe if this pace is anything to go by, and if we can see Tertiary not able to make pace up through the field, he could be leading the championship after this final round here at Sebring. So it's all to play for, of course. Kamal Hashimi could be on for a great result as well. Do not count out this man either. Look how much he's saving as well. You could just hear the amount of throttle being taken was really much none on the way into this section now. So definite fuel saving. Expect to see James and Kamal coming into the pits. We've ticked past the magical 30-minute mark. Hasse is what we used to refer myself and Alex coined the magical 30, where you'd have to pit in 30 minutes, 1 hour, and 1 hour 30 to be very much safe for not needing a splash and dash come the end. And right on cue, James Ebram makes his way into the pits.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's only Alvaro Fernandez and Carlos Ponce who's yet to make a pit stop. So at that time, we will have had everyone else in. Race leader James Ebram in now. Kamal Hashimi is in right behind it. Ooh, looks like Kamal might actually have a bit of a scrape on the wall there, but I'm not quite sure about it. And here is Theo Schleret, who's now behind Hans Blankart. Just what happened between those two? I think it might have been on the exit of the pit lane here. As you can see, indeed, it's Blankart on the left, it's Schleret on the right, and they're gonna go absolutely side by side into Christensen, and a big drift there from Hans Blankart, though stays ahead. Heroic driving from the Belgian, and he does very, very well to stay ahead, as he just about keeps the car under control. Oh, and look at that, another huge moment for Theo Schleret. He's not going to pick up an off-track for that, but that rear end got very lively as he touched the dirt on the outside of the track there, Edward.
Very, very loose there from Theo Schleret as well, just to keep the car pointing in the right direction in the end there. As we see now, James Ebram back up onto the circuit behind Rømer, but what is the gap? 2 seconds. Jamie Conway close behind. We expect this switch around to be dealt with rather quickly, I would imagine, considering they are teammates and in different classes. Gotta say though, Hasse, actually James Ebram is definitely closing in on Rømer. So we might be seeing a change for the lead in the AMS not too far down the line. But of course, Hasse, catching is one thing, passing is something different entirely.
That is very, very true indeed. The thing is that if you get close enough here at Sebring, the slipstream that you can pick up from the car ahead just gives you a massive boost indeed. And you get it within 0.3 of a second. Usually that means that at least from Le Mans down to Sunset, you will be able to claw back that sort of time. One thing that isn't mentioned that often with Sebring, but I think it's something that actually should be mentioned a little more often, is that the track isn't really wide at all. It's got a few points where it kind of widens out, but most of the track is really quite narrow, and it doesn't help the overtaking here at the track. It certainly doesn't make it easier at all, but you can see here it sort of widens out a little bit, and then as you come up to the next tight section with the right-hander, it bottlenecks back in together, and it becomes a narrow squeeze yet again. And through several of the sectors you see the concrete slopes that make it all the more difficult as well. Something to be taken into consideration under braking, especially with these cars. Of course, they don't have ABS, and as such it is all the more easy to make a mistake under braking and lock up the wheels, and that could have huge consequences. A small mistake to make. So there's a lot of stuff to sort of keep under control. And you gotta say the drivers have been doing a brilliant job so far. Now looking at the lap times, Edward Benz Nemethe's done a 47.8 on his last lap, 0.8 that is, of course. I should probably just align myself for once, and that's just 200ths of a second quicker than Peter Molnar, who did gain a little bit throughout that last pit stop round. Jamie Conway is making his way through on James Ebram, but I'm not quite sure if he's actually easily able to get past him. That's certainly not the way to do so. Jamie Conway with a sizable excursion to the dirt there on the outside of turn 1. And as you can see on the tire tracks in that situation, well, he's not the only one to have done so yet here.
Yeah, so let's have a look at this. Jamie Conway running very wide there through the first corner. Did great to keep the car under control though when rejoining the circuit. This Mark Winters now. Was this going to be another moment maybe onto the bumps going through Sunset? Does the car just overtake? You can see the car responding from the bumps. Oh, no, he actually goes through there.
He goes through just one, but he's passed on Rømer, which means I think Rømer have had some kind of problem. Mind you, he was leading the AM class, and both of these drivers, I think he's been outside of the picture somehow. Something has happened to him, and I don't know what it's been exactly, but he's in deep trouble, and I'm afraid he's disconnected here. Because he's not on track. And if that's the case, that is an absolute catastrophe for Rømer here, 36 minutes into the race. And in a relatively comfortable leading position. That isn't how he wanted to go on here, that is certain.
Absolutely not, but that's the way it goes, isn't it? So sometimes racing can be very, very cruel, and I think we've just seen an example of that there.
Yeah, absolutely so. It's something we don't get in sim racing that often, or with that many sims at least, is the mechanical failure aspect of racing. We do get another aspect though. It is connection failures, or connectivity issues, if you will, and it's something that's well, even though iRacing is known to be a fairly stable service, I say that looking at some of the other sims on the market, that doesn't quite live up to those kind of standards. It does also really have a lot to do with, well, not only the internet speed, and that's not even really that important, because it's not like it requires huge amounts of data to go through, but it's more about the general stability, I guess, of your internet provider, which is, again, very, very much out of your own hands. So, terrible to see for Rømer, such bad luck. He's jumped to pits here, and he's, I guess, left pits, which means that he's might just be back on track again. I'm not quite sure about that. We'll have to see. Rømer, he is back on track. There he is. Out running again for stage 1 there in the 107 machine. He's gonna go the long way around Alexander Rockenbuch.
And that was a change for position as well. So Alexander Rømer with damage wasn't fighting that one too hard. Rømer back out on the track. Car looking all right for the moment. However, this could be very dangerous for him and his chances of staying in third place in the AM Championship, because let's have a look where his nearest rival is. Alvaro Fernandez Montes is just a couple places up the road. As James Sebring very, very loose, and I think that rather sped up the pass for position there.
Yeah.
I think you can see how close they are. I think that was definitely an inevitability of the positions being switched, but maybe they happened a little bit sooner on account of James just getting that a little bit too twitchy.
Yeah, but in the end, I think he'd also like to get rid of whatever pressure comes from behind and from Jamie Conway, since there isn't really any point in fighting it. So maybe not the worst of ideas, just to get it done and dust it. He's got 8.2 seconds of advantage down to Kamal Hashimi in behind, so relatively comfortable gap in behind. And up ahead, Ben Snamithy, Peter Molnar, still 1-2 in this race, still separated by just around a second. And while they're going around at Tom's at the moment, it sort of looks a little bit more like formation driving from the two, and that just goes to show the level of these drivers, of the pro split leaders at the moment. They are absolutely flying. Look at the precision here
as well
through that opening sector.
Hasse.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it's such important sector to get right. So easy to make the mistakes there throughout the first sector, and when you see it nailed, looks all the more impressive.
Yes, and in the meantime, I think we're starting to see a little bit of closing down. Past few laps, Peter Zuber has been steadily gaining on third placed Chris Barrett. What that, of course, means is that if Peter Zuber closes in and is able to take that position, we will have yet another race clutch. 1, 2, 3. And also that could help Peter Zuber stay in contention and maybe secure at least second place in the championship with a podium place. Of course, he would be very much delighted if he could get something a bit more out of this, maybe, though not too glad if it would be at the expense of race leader and teammate Vince Nemathy, who is his nearest challenger, or biggest challenger rather, to try and get into the lead of the championship, because Bence is doing a great job of just securing his lead at the moment, with, of course, leading the race, the finale of this brilliant LMP2 Apex Technologies Championship, as we've just watched Alexander Rømer get a little bit too, I think, should we say, throttle happy coming through the hairpin there, Hasse.
Yeah, but I'm not even sure that was on throttle oversteer as such. Seemed to me that the car is a little loose on corner entrance there. Whether that's holding the brakes a little too much or just a setup related issue, could be something with a bit of damage somewhere on the car that's causing it to get loose as he tries to rotate it into the corner. It's just one of those balance issues, and this is a car that also kind of punishes if you try to push too hard. It's a car that really likes being in balance, and actually, if you're driving this car a lot, and especially when in practice for some of the endurance events that it's taking part in, the Dallara P217, I think a lot of drivers find that they can actually fuel save without losing too much time, because the car is just that much more settled when you go off the throttle and keep the balance of the car coming into the corner. You're able to enter just that little bit quicker while still keeping the car poised, and that could negate for some of the time lost from lifting and coasting in the braking zones. But if you enter too quickly and press the car too much, well, it certainly doesn't like that. And it's not a car where you can lean on the understeer. You would sort of do a little more if you were driving a GT3 or even a GTE car. And going back to what I said earlier, it does require a subtle touch to drive this machine efficiently.
Yes, and is that subtle touch going to be there from Alvaro Fernandez Montes as he tries to pass Mark Winters? Not going to look just yet into the hairpin. Is content to stay behind for the moment. And then try to work on getting a good exit. But it's so hard to do in these LMP2 cars to power out these slow speed corners. Rear tires are very happy in getting that wheel spin going and making it very difficult to get up and running. As well as on the brakes, these cars, as I'm sure you're aware, they're not the easiest things to get stopped on the brakes. Very tricky bits of kit, but like you said, deft touch is required. Nice run though through here, and there's a couple of moves onto the dirt from Mark Winters. Will this open up a chance for Fernandez Montes again? Not close enough, going into the right into Le Mans. But it's all about the exit now, coming onto the straight into sunset. In fact, as we say sunset, I think we are about to see the first few moments of the sun setting now. It's not quite there yet, but I'm certain in about 30 minutes time we will start to see the sky become all sorts of wonderful amber hues. There's a different lines, Hasse. Always different drivers taking different lines through there, and they all seem to work out near enough the same.
Yeah, indeed, that's a true thing with sunset. It's a corner with
what a lunge, Alvaro.
Very late lunge, and he's still there on the outside, and that might mean he can come back there, because if he can stay outside on Christensen, well, it's a hard thing to do, and it's not gonna work out there for Mark Winters, although he really tried to fight it. Let's see, let's just have another look at that. That was a great overtake, came in very late. But Mark Winters maybe staying out there a little too late, and as such he opens the door for Montes to, well, write a letter and send it. And, well, it got all the way to the mailbox, didn't it, there? Great move. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that was I was going to just echo those sentences, yeah, so that was a great move, wasn't it, from Alvaro? Maybe catching Mark Winters a little bit unawares, perhaps. This came from quite a ways back, but the door was definitely open. He made the pass cleanly, so for all intents and purposes, a cracking move there from 176 Iridium Motorsports driver.
Oh,
is that Peter Zuber? Ooh.
Yeah, it is.
He was chasing. He's been pushing very hard as Peter to try and close the gap to Chris Barrett, but maybe that was a sign that he's been pushing just a little bit too much, perhaps.
That's a good point. It's easy to lose whatever you gain here and there in big bits and big chunks from making mistakes like that, which is certainly a thing to avoid. You mentioned the braking being a little bit tricky in these cars, but there is actually a nature to it that's a little bit different from what you're used to as well, because you have so much downforce compared to GT cars at least, that you can actually brake very hard initially. And then as the speed comes off the car, you have to come off the brake pedal as well. And that's especially important in the slower corners, coming into the hairpin. But actually it's surprising just how much braking you can do while you still have the help of the downforce gaining grip. And there is a lot of aspects of driving this car that's quite unique to it, or unique at least to higher downforce machines. And something I think a lot of drivers will find as well if they compare these machines to the LMP1s of iRacing is that these machines are actually a little bit more difficult to drive because they have less downforce. Of course, there isn't a hybrid system to take into consideration and to manage, but it's and that's one of the things I enjoy. Coming back to what I personally enjoy about this car as well, Edward. It's that balance between downforce, mechanical grip, power, and a car that's still really light and nimble. It's just a great package altogether.
They do kind of, at least from my experience, feel like GTEs, but on steroids, just lightened up, loads of downforce on, a little bit more, and just, you know, go wild. And that's, I think, really approaches that. They just gave some designers a few specifications, then other than that, go wild, and we've been blessed with this wonderful Dallara E217 LMP2 car. Alvaro is starting to build the gap, isn't he, to Mark Winters, so we'll instead go to Benson Matthew and Peter Molnar. Ben's actually coming a little bit wide through the right-hander, bringing the advantage once more into Molnar's hand. but it's not quite working just at the moment. I think, as much as I want to think that maybe these drivers are trying to get a system where they're slipstreaming and maybe Peter's saving a bit of fuel, it doesn't seem like he's able to actually close in on Bence the Matey up ahead. So I think this is just Bence with good pace, able to keep Peter Molnar at arm's reach at the moment.
So it seems, the bumpy nature of Sunset, we're going to stay on board with Peter Molnar for a lap of Sebring. To give you an idea of just what it's like to pilot one of these LMP2s around here. Turn 1, and you try to get as close as you dare to the apex and the wall on the left-hand side. Now braking just around those 3 cones into Christensen. Late apex. There it is. A quick right-hander and another late apex onto the big bend. Trying to keep the momentum of the car alive here underneath the bridge. As you swerve right, ever so slightly, of course, flat out. Now some people go up into 6th here, some don't. And very late braking. You can see that bump coming into the hairpin as well. That's something to be very mindful of on the braking here. And one of the most difficult things to get right on this track, period. Now into the middle sector, another hard braking zone. Just about the 3 cones again. Oh, late apex, a little too quick there in for Peter Molnar. And you could see how the car didn't react well to the understeer. And up ahead, Nemeth is actually flying away here. Like his name is Lenny Kravitz. It's incredible. But on board we are with Peter Molnar still now into the final sector. Down towards Dien-de-Bien and Le Mans. This is a very tricky section as well. Once that you can very easily catch off and get too much curb underneath the car, and that would be able to damage the bottom. We have some incredible info coming in the chat here from Andrew as well. Peter Molnar is actually a famous bodybuilder, Peter the Freezer Molnar. He has an extra strong rig to stop him ripping the wheel off. Well, that's that's incredible bonus info. Certainly, if anywhere it's needed with a bit of upper body strength, well, it's about here. And Peter Molnar, it seems that we're just making good use of that.
Yeah, he's got good physical strength, but does he have the mental strength required for these 2-hour races? He's shown already that he's able to, of course, take podiums and race victories in this series, but can he do it where it counts in the finale? Can he have one final thing to cheer about in closing up and trying to pass his teammate Bence the Matey? At the moment, it doesn't seem to be going his way, as Mark Winters is keeping the gap very much honest between himself and Alvaro Fernandez Montes. I think these two are just a little bit shy of the pace being shown currently by the front 4 in the AM class: Theo Sherry, Hans Blanchard, Kamal Hashimi, and James Ibram. Look at the times coming through. Blanchard building the gap by just about half a second to Theo Schlery that time by. And up at the front as well, James Ibram a little bit quicker than Kamal Hashimi. So the gap's starting to near or nearabouts mobilise themselves. However, well, Hans Blanchard is definitely trying to find a way through on Kamal Hashimi. The gaps have been coming down. Just look at the lines being taken there. Much better for the 1-3-3. Kamal might be trying to hold on for second place and have an Apex Tech 1-2 in the AM class. However, you definitely have got to think that Hans Blanchard is going to have something to say about that before the end of the race. We are coming into the stage where drivers might make their next pit stop in the coming 5 to 8 minutes. And what is that going to do for the strategy? Definitely going to be exciting to watch, isn't it, Hasse?
Indeed it is. One thing I think worth noting is that Kamal Hashimi was one of those drivers who was able to stretch his first stint beyond that magical 30. And as such, he is sitting on quite an advantage compared to Blanchard, who is pushing, well, visibly harder, who is going quicker as well. But he's also going to have to take an extra pit stop if things don't change out quite drastically for him as well. So I think Kamal Hashimi is just mostly looking at his fuel targets at the moment. And I don't think he's going to be too worried about Hans Blanchard in behind. because I think he knows that if he can just reach his fuel targets, then he'll be coming through with a pit stop less, and that's going to give him a huge advantage in the end. And even a short pit stop here is even easily going to cost you 30 to 40 seconds overall on the lap delta, and that means that it's something to avoid if possible. And on track, just looking at the gaps as well, but 48 seconds from Kamal Hashemi up to Ben Snemethi. That means it's about 36 seconds from James Ibram, and that means that what I said earlier might not come into effect, even though the front runners are going to take that extra pit stop with the gap that's on track at the moment. But we're just going to have to see how the race pans out. Just as we said, Hans Blankert was closing that gap. I don't know if he's made a small mistake somewhere, but he's lost about a second worth of time there to Kamal Hashemi on this last lap. And now falling back ever so slightly. We're expecting this pit stop that's coming up to be the tire swap stop, if you will, as well. And as such, of course, it's going to be a bit longer, but if it's the case that everybody takes it, it's not going to make the biggest of differences.
It'll still be very exciting to see how this is all going to come to fruition. Are we going to see all drivers taking tyres, or will some roll the dice now that the sun is beginning to set? The track is cooling down. Will drivers take a chance? Hope the track cools even more and gives them the time and, well, the conditions needed to make a single stop of the tyres. Well, not even a single stop, just one full 2-hour stint on the tyres work out. That's going to be the question, Hasse. What would you do, maybe if, for example, you were the likes of Theo Schlerer, shall we say, who's currently coming into this as the championship leader, but losing out, so James Ibram at the moment, would you recommend that he just rolls the dice and goes for it, or plays it safe and hopes that he can close in towards the end of the stage of the race and maybe snatch a podium?
It's really hard to say. I think if you had a plan from the earliest stages of the race to actually try and do that quadruple stint on the tires, it at 26 degrees, well, it could possibly be possible. I don't really know. I don't have anything to back it up or anything, so it could be wrong as well. It could be absolutely impossible. My apologies if it is. But I think it's going to be very hard to just adjust to it mid-race if you didn't kind of, approach the first half of the race very cautiously and very smoothly as well. And the thing is that a tire stop with these cars, it's about 20 seconds. So you always have to sort of gauge up, well, are you going to lose those 20 seconds on track going slower because you had to save your tires? And that's kind of where the mats are. So Hans Blankert, I think, is in a good position at the moment, even though Theo Schlerer is picking up the pace.
Hans Blankert just coming into the pits.
Yeah, indeed.
Is Theo going to follow him in?
I think he's going to...
Theo stays out.
Yeah.
This could be him trying to save a bit of fuel, and I think, let's have a look at how he's driving. Is he driving maybe with a bit of tyre conservation in mind? Is he just really ringing that? You can see on board now, thank you very much, Hasse, just the stability of his inputs. How's it looking? Lifting nice and early, trying to keep the car nice and steady. I don't think he's trying to take too much out of the tyres. Very gentle on the throttle as well coming out, so maybe Theo could be trying to make it work. We'll have a look at Hans Blankert in the pits now and find out what he's doing. Is the car up on the jacks? Are the tyres coming on? Oh, so I think... No, there wasn't any tyres being taken. The car didn't come back down then move off.
Pit overall. Nope, that's true. Like this, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just sorry, just cut in, but I was just going to say the pit time, very much the same. Hans Blankert could be trying to take it to the final stint. Of course, it isn't going to matter too much. If you can still do the stint here, you could take that decision coming into the final stint. And most of these drivers should be able to do a set of triples, so to say a triple stint. That's a triple fuel stint. So given that we're also only running about 70% of a tank full here, that means that the drivers will be coming in a little more often than they'd be if they were running full fuel loads here, and that might change things up ever so slightly. Well, will it really? We'll have to see. But Mark Winters still in the pits, and he's surely taking tires, as you can see. So interestingly, Edward, we can see already now with the first few cars coming in from their second pit stops here, that strategies are indeed mixing up, and that gives us a lot to look forward to as we come to the closing minutes of the race.
Yep, Theo Schlerer coming into the pits. He's one to watch for the championship fight in the AM class. Current championship leader coming into this final round, but he's not been having the best of races as it stands, depending, of course, on different factors like bonus points and drop rounds. He might be coming out of this second best to James Ebram, who's had a wonderful end to the season. The car takes the fuel in first. We'll watch it go in, and then the car will expect to see either come up on the jacks or go out of the pit box and rejoin the race very, very shortly. 5 seconds, I think, remaining on the fuel coming in. One up on the jacks. There we go. So that's the story with that little battle. Theo Schlerer coming in for tyres here as we see Hans Blanca let's on by, having opted not to. So difference in the strategy coming through. Is this either going to be a masterstroke for Hans Blanca, or will this play right into the hands of Theo Schlerer, who's going to have fresher tyres come the end? Put a pin in that thought, Hasse, because I've just seen that the race leaders have come into the pits, all 4 of them.
Yeah, exactly, and that's an interesting one to see just how long they'll be stopped and will they be taking tires at this point. There is something to be said as well for the fact that it could actually be a wiser decision to take the tires now. If they become so worn that you'd have to change them at the 3rd pit stop anyways, then you might look at a situation where you're actually losing important time on track because you're going to be out there with worn tires as well. A good note as well there. As we have James Ebram sneaking back up into the race lead. Of course, he's yet to do his second pit stop in the 108 machine there. But he's also one of the few cars that's actually stretching his second stop across the magical hour, as we could call it now. And that means
Kamal Hashimi, yeah,
indeed. Those two are looking very, very good for top spots in the AM class. Oh, and Theo Schlerer has had 5 seconds off track here. It's at the hairpin. Oh, he picks up a cone. That's a bit of grass there on the outside. And he finds himself facing the wrong way. No traffic as he comes back on, it seems. And he's on his way again without too much drama. But certainly that's not going to have made it any easier for him to catch back up to Hans Blancard.
Yeah, of course, he's got fresh tyres, but that won't have done them any good, a slide like that. Better him doing that on fresh tyres, though, and not on an old set, because that would really, really wear them quite heavily and mean that your plan to last till the end might not be going so well. Peter Zuber here has actually opted to take tyres, so a difference in strategy for the 3rd of the race clutch cars in this race, while Ben Stamati and Peter Molnar, who are likely to re-inherit the race once James Ebram comes into the pitch, which he does now. Difference going on here. Having a look as well. Have any other drivers opted to take tyres? Let's have a look through, count them through. So Peter Zuber has taken tyres, as has Theo Schlerer and Mark Winters. Very strange situation where some drivers have, others haven't. For my money, Hasse, I'd be taking tyres at this stage. So it's very interesting to see what these drivers do compared to, I guess, what likes of me and you might think. But that's probably the reason why they've got I ratings upwards of 5,000.
Yeah, and well north of that as well. In the case of Ben Stamati and Peter Molnar, who are well above 6,000. The same for Peter Zuber as well. And that goes to well, show the level as well. But even for some of the drivers in the AM split as well, they are well north. They must have been going through a fruitful evolution in their iRacing careers. Certainly much, much higher than mine as well. So, of course, we've heard it many times that iRating isn't everything and such, but let's be honest about it. You don't come sleeping to an iRating of plus 6k. That said.
Well, Hans Blankart, actually, he's taken tyres. Actually, no, he didn't take tyres, rather.
He didn't take tyres.
James Ebram has. So James Ebram has opted to take tyres, has slotted in behind the 133, and is now going to go chasing back the lead of the race. So, Hans Blankart, what is his advantage at the moment? Only, really, 7 seconds at the moment, Hasse. So, he's going to be in for a job, I think, to keep ahead of James Ebram. In all likelihood, James is going to come through with fresher tyres, more grip, of course, in the final hour of the race. But later on, when the likes of Kemal Hashimi decide to try and come through, maybe Theo Schlere, he still might have enough of an advantage. But it's all about what the drivers do in this early stage of this stint, because this is crucial for their races, how they treat their fresh tyres in the first 15 minutes.
Absolutely so. You can really ruin a set if you push too hard early in the stint. But I also feel like it's going to be a problem for Hans Blankart. He's on schedule to have to do a splash and dash come the end of the race, which is probably going to make it difficult for him to make big gains on not taking tires in the end. So a bit of a risky strategy. He might up his fuel saving a bit at this point as well. We'll have to see if that's the case. But so far, interestingly up ahead here, Penstemeth getting caught up to now by Peter Molnar. So that might be the bodybuilding strength in Peter Molnar's body that's enabling him to just push on as the race goes into the second and final hour. And with half the race gone, there is indeed just under half the race left at this moment. 55 minutes to go here of the 2 hours of this TPI LMP2 Championship finale from Sebring. Of course, brought to you by Apex Technologies and covered by us here at Simracersworld TV. That gap is indeed coming down, and it's coming down, well, sector by sector, corner by corner. You can see Penstemeth going a little bit wide, maybe even in sunset. It's down to 0.8 of a second. And it's going to be interesting here if Peter Molnar can just push on. And I'm forgetting the fact that they're actually teammates, so you would expect them to keep it civil, wouldn't you?
You would expect, but the expectation doesn't necessarily always equal reality. So what will we find in these next few moments as the battle begins? The hot up for 4th place, Peter Zuber and Jamie Conway. Got to see them go wheel to wheel for the next few moments. Obviously, advantage is in the favour of the race clutch driver with the fresh tyres. Has he got enough heat into them, though? That's the question, because coming out of the box, they can be very chilly. I think they're definitely up to now, considering just how stable the car is compared to the slides that Jamie Conway's getting now. Really struggling to apply the power on corner exit. Really having to fight the rear end to get it in a line and power his way out. Means that he's vulnerable into these sorts of corners, but I think he's got it just about settled out. Oh, as there's a few puffs of smoke up in front, maybe a little bit of a lock-up from one of the cars up the road. I think they're coming up to back marker traffic. They are, so let's hope that this doesn't become a factor of...
Yeah, that might just be the chance that Peter Zuber is looking for to get past on Jamie Conway, and I think... whoa, that's a bit of a... Well, it's gentlemanly done, and he got out of the way. Didn't really make any nuisance of himself, but they had to be trustful and committed, is what I want to say in that situation, and they were indeed. So no real problems there. Peter Zuber, his advantage is not going to go anywhere here, Edward, so he can allow himself to really be patient in this situation and just wait until the right moment sort of arises ahead of him and make the pass on Jamie Conway in a situation where he doesn't have to risk it all. because he's got an advantage. You can just see, like, Jamie Conway's car does not really want to turn into sunset, and I think he must have lost about half a second there to Peter Suber on the fresh rubber there. Jamie Conway takes the inside line. Peter Suber follows him in. Are they gonna go too wide here? No, they're not, but Conway gets a terrible exit, and here goes Peter Suber. That's a brilliant setup, and he's gonna get the move made here already. Beautifully done by the Hungarian race clutch driver. We're gonna have a second look at that. That is masterfully done, tricking Jamie Conway into really, well, I wouldn't say making the mistake, but really making himself vulnerable. Oh, and there's the contact between the two. And I'm not sure Peter Suber's gonna be too excited about that. We'll get a second view of that as well here. Edward, first of all, is the pass.
Yeah, so I can't quite see what's going on there, but it looked, from what you said, an absolutely amazing move there, but what on earth happened after the fact, Hasse? That was not what we want to see at all.
Indeed. So there it is. And I have actually, with my teammates in Team Simpac Racing, been lucky enough to be in lobbies up against the Apex Tech Racing boys, and I can safely say, my hand on my heart, there are some very fast drivers in there indeed. Jamie Conway has had a bit of a problem. Oh, and that's it again here, so just watch here, he comes around, he has to take to the escape road, and that of course gives him a bit of an extra off track. It's not going to give him an incident, he's below 50k an hour. 30 miles an hour, that is. Peter Suber now back up into 4th place, but with a little more drama than he would possibly have wanted. Now let's have a second look here. He comes laying on the brakes there, Jamie Conway. That little bit of bump, it sets him off. He locks up the car, and that is just the slightest of taps, and I don't think there is any damage to either of the cars. Oh, and there's been a second problem here for Peter Suber, who's in the pits.
Oh dear, Peter Suber. And I think he just pulls over to a stop and comes into the pits, doesn't he, Hasse?
Yeah, he does, he goes, but what exactly happens here? Let's go on board here, let's see. So you have to wonder, why does he stop the car and pull it into the pits? Is the realization of some kind of damage, or... It's heartbreaking for Peter Suber, and not the way he wanted to his race to go. That much is for certain here. It's gifted a position, I think, to Jamie Conway.
That could, depending on as well, Hasse, if he's able to finish the race, that could also gift the championship, second place in the championship, to Peter Molnar, who is only 11 points back coming into this and is currently sitting in 2nd place. Now, Peter Suber, as long as he finishes the race, I think he'll score some good points. That could be enough to see him, because it goes by class position, not overall position. He's currently sitting in 5th place, but he's out. He's out of the session, out of the race. Oh dear, that's not what Peter Suber was looking for coming into this final race, and it's just... I'm at a loss for words, Hasse, because he did so well getting the move done, and then for it to come undone was just heartbreaking.
It is, and it's... There could be a bit of damage to the rear diffuser from that situation, though I'm having a hard time seeing it, really. Sometimes the tires get a little overheated if you slide around, and that takes a few laps for the temps to get back to normal, and that could make it feel like something is wrong with the car. It did look a little bit weird how he just pulled over and stopped it after a slight off track there, and well, we'll have to see if we can figure out just what happened to Peter Suber. We're still looking at James Ibrahim in the 108 machine, Apex Tech Racing, currently 2nd in AM. He's chasing down Hans Blankert, but on fresher tires and on course to have a pit stop less at the end of the race. We're nearing the final 45 minutes of racing here from Sebring, and it's still Spence, Nemeth, Peter Molnar, Chris Barrett, Jamie Conway, the top 4 in Pro. And then the top 5 in AM, being Hans Blancart, James Ibram, Kamal Hashimi, Theo Schleray, and Alvaro Fernandez. Mark Winters is in 6th place. And then a bunch of unlucky souls, I was about to call them. Not been an easy one for everyone. Roy Mars in the 107 machine, he was leading the AM charge. And then all of a sudden looked like he had, well, what looked like a disconnection. Whatever it was. He's fallen down the order and certainly hasn't found himself in any luck here.
Yeah, he hasn't really found any luck whatsoever, has Roy, but well, now the 107 is going to try and get something from this race. Mark Winters is just over a minute up the road. Carlos Ponce about a minute and a half back, so he is in his own little bubble, unfortunately. But of course, like we've seen what's happened to Peter Zuber, drama can happen to any drivers ahead, and that might be what he needs, is just to keep going and hope that things fall his way. He's going to do all he can, and now it's up, I think, unfortunately, just out of his hands what comes for this final race of the season for Roy Mars. As we see Theo Schleray, you just saw Alvaro Fernandez Montes coming through Sunset, 3 seconds back, but Theo does have the fresher tyres, so he's going to try and make gains actually on the cars ahead. See if there's a way in on Kamal Hashimi and as well the rest of the field, namely as well Hans Blanca, who I must say has done a great job in not getting caught that quickly from James, who's still around about 4 seconds back.
Yeah, the gap's coming down, but not coming down that quickly, but mind you, he'll have 45 minutes to go. And if he's really to gain on not taking tires, he has to take these tires all the way to the line, which means that the advantage pendulum is only going to swing in the direction of James Ibram from here on to the finish line. And I think he's already lost about half a second on this lap alone here. Jamie Conway has had a kind of problem here. And I think he might have been involved with Carlos Ponce. No, that's my mistake. Oh, he hits that soft wall hard into the tires, hard indeed. Backs up to get the car running again, but that is anything but optimal for Jamie Conway. Let's see what happens here, because we've got another situation. Carlos Ponce here in the 101 car. The Iridium machine just misses the apex, and the rear end comes around, but he keeps it out the wall. Fairly less drama, you could say, in that situation. Jamie Conway, though, you have to wonder if that car has suffered damage. To me, it does look like it's picked up a bit of damage on its, well, around the right front where it took the hit as well. I'd be very surprised to see if the car's okay. And Jamie Conway seems to have lost all concentration for now, at least. Or he's struggling with the car. Could be the damage. Anyhow, it's not an optimal situation, and now James Ibram is on his tail. And by the looks of it, he's going to make short work of it. Conway.
There it is.
Yeah,
this is a very close little fight, this, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. And Jamie Conway, I think, let off the gas there because he could see Ibram was just going so much quicker at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised to see Conway try and hold on at least until the next pit stop, just to avoid having to take an extra one. But you can clearly see a bit of a dent to the front right hand side of the car that could affect his suspension as well. Certainly gonna affect the aerodynamics of the front of the machine, as we're told that Peter Zuber wasn't feeling well, and that could be the issue. Well, if that's the case, the swiftest and best of recoveries. I hope Peter's all right. I don't know if you've ever...
I was wondering why he was a little bit off the pace, and that probably explains that he was a little bit off colour this evening. Yeah, so hopefully Zuba's feeling a little bit better soon. It's very, very unfortunate that he's been struck down at this late stage of the championship. Would have loved to have seen him properly challenge up there at the end, but unfortunately, fate can sometimes just give you a big fat NO, can't it?
Yeah, that's very true indeed, and I was just wondering because I have had my experiences with feeling sick while racing as well, and actually, you know, having a race and while coming down with the flu. And I remember my first Petit Le Mans when I was actually coming down with something, and it just got worse and worse as the race dragged on. And for my final stint, I simply had to hand over the car to the teammates because I couldn't really follow along what the hell was happening. Everything seemed to happen quite a lot quicker than it normally was, and it wasn't a nice experience at all. And add into it that it was a team race, and you've got responsibility for the rest of the drivers in the team to keep the car clean and all that. So I've tried it myself, and it's not a nice position to be in. That much is for sure. So sorry to hear that.
Well, we can focus instead, Hasse, on this. The charge of James Ibram on fresh tyres, and also the defence of Hans Blanchard on old tyres that started the race, but seem to be serving him well because he's been keeping James Ibram at bay for a moment, but the gap is going to close in now, under 2 seconds. You know what, Hasse, we might be able to actually stay in front coming into this next pit stop phase as we come into the 1 hour 20 minute mark. But with an exit like that, look at how strong James Ibram is at that particular point of the circuit on the power. Those tyres are just so switched on for him. He's been able to look after him in these early stages, and now he's really reaping the rewards. Just look on board how much confidence he has in the car to just stick on corner turning, and most importantly on corner exit, because of these long straights. It's so crucial, isn't it, to get a good stable exit.
And you can see James Ibram really carrying the speed through the corners in a very different way than Hans Blanchard seems able to. And I don't think there's going to be many laps left in the lead for Hans Blanchard, I'm afraid. It's not because he doesn't have the skill. He surely does. But with a tire advantage like the one James Ibram is sitting on at the moment, it's going to be very, very hard for Hans Blanchard to do anything about the Brit and the 108 machine. Machine is going to become bigger and bigger and bigger in the mirrors. Oh, Blanchard, there's a huge moment for Ibram as well. Oh my word! It's not the first time we've seen it tonight. Edward exiting Sunset. And to be fair, I've tried that one myself as well, but that was a huge moment. Well caught by Ibram, who keeps it all composed. And he's now well within the second there. Hans Blanchard bleeding off time. Do you think he's going to go for it on the final stop as well? Or do you think he's going to change his tires here coming into the last pit stop in... or what might be the last pit stop? Because let's be fair, we actually don't know. It could be the last pit stop for some of them. But if anyone has to do a extra splash and dash at the end, that's certainly going to make it very, very hard to claw back a result from this one.
I have a feeling that if you commit at the hour mark to either taking tyres or not, you need to stick with it. So I think by not taking tyres, Hans has got to commit now until the end of the race. Otherwise, the advantage you would have got from not taking the tyres is gone. The advantage of, you know, not spending 25 seconds stationary in the pits extra, you'll just lose it because you spend that time later on. So you might as well just go for it and hope towards the end of the race. You can see now that the sun is definitely beginning to set. Not sure what the track temperature is. I think the air is still at 26. I think the track might be down to 28 now. So it was 33 at the start, now down a little bit. Not quite the temperatures we were expecting to see at this stage. Maybe a little bit hotter, but of course with the cars out on the circuit pounding away, that does allow the heat to sort of remain for a while. And of course, it's not been a very cloudy day, so the sun has been just beaming on it. Now it's getting lower in the sky. We should be seeing the track temperature come way, way down. Look at this though, Hasse, the amber glow. There's nothing better than sunset at Sebring, is there?
Certainly not. It's a beautiful track indeed. And once you go into nighttime here, you have the lights along the track edges, pretty much all the way around the track that illuminates. It looks fantastic. It makes for a fantastic show as well, and one of the easier tracks to drive in dark conditions as well here. But enough about that, because James Sebring's getting very, very close to Hans Blankert, and the 108 is having a big old look here into the hairpin. Blankert, I think, ever so slightly misses the apex, and here they get very close to one another yet again. Sebring, I think, having to hold off here, but he might just have the run. And Blankert is going to try to defend this one. I don't think there's going to be a chance for it. James Sebring, oh, he just swings inside and gets it done immediately. Beautiful move from the Brit here. Let's have another look at it.
Yeah, let's have a quick little look at this. You can see James Sebring diving, darting to the inside, late on the brakes, nice and committed. Cracking move there. Full commitment from the 108, leaving no defence on the table for Hans Blankert. But it was admirable, wasn't it, from Hans to stay in front for that long? But I think it was always inevitable with the fresh tyres and with the pace of this man. James Sebring was always going to come out on top here. And now into the final 35 minutes. What will happen in this AM Championship? Can Theo Schlerer do anything to try and get up there? Because at the moment, the answers aren't really coming in reply to James Sebring's pace. This could be a great way for James Sebring to round out the championship. This could be his way to seal it right at the death. Coming in on the back foot, Hasse. What a drive that would be.
It would be amazing indeed. We'll have to see if it's going to work out for him. I'm also just thinking, because there's still a gap of around 16 seconds between Hans Blankert and Kamal Hashemi. So even though Blankert is down into second place now, if he's able to get through without that extra pit stop at the end, he could find himself actually holding on and staying in front of Kamal Hashemi. Jamie Conway still seemingly struggling with his car in behind. And up ahead, actually, that's quite interesting here. Look at this, Edward. The gap is down to just over half a second, and someone has had an incident right in front of the race leader. And, oh, that's a nightmare situation. I think that was Alvaro Fernandez going around at Christensen. Indeed it was.
Ooh, heart-stopping stuff there for the leaders, but they can get through nice and safely because the car stopped off onto the grass. Although definitely the heart rate went a bit higher, I think, for the pair of them up here. Definitely Benson Matthew, who was able to see that all unfold and not know where it was going to stop until the last moment. Credit to Alvaro Fernandez for making sure. I think he definitely played his own part in keeping that car off the circuit as well. But pit stops are about to come in. As I say, that Hans does come into the pits. We expect him to just take fuel and then go until the splashes at the end.
But he has to...
And Benson Matthew. Let's have a look. Sorry, what's that, Hasse?
I was just gonna say, now he's really behind. It's about, well, 3.5 minutes short of the halfway, or the half an hour left marker, the 1.5 hour marker of the race. That's gonna be very, very hard for Hans Blankert to actually carry through to the end. At least that's how I see it. These two are gonna take another one. Peter Molnar just 0.3 of a second behind on Ben Snemethi. So you have to wonder if they're actually going to start fighting. Molnar's tires could be better at this point. Mind you, none of the pro leaders here took tires when they had their pit stops. So there could be tire management coming into effect. And Peter Molnar, who's been playing second fiddle throughout this race so far, is all of a sudden beginning to show himself as an absolutely genuine contender. He stayed in contention all the way through. Let's not forget, the gap has rarely been more than 1.5 seconds, maybe just up to 2 seconds on a few occasions. But he's closed it right down with every chance that he's gotten. to do so. And now, yet again, on the tail of Ben's Nemethian, coming into a pit stop round. If Peter Molnar's quick on the pit stop here, we might see a change of position with it.
Yeah, this could be very, very intriguing to see what's going to happen here. I think, though, for all intents and purposes, now Peter Molnar might have secured second place in the championship. I don't think anyone, though, can challenge Benson and Matthew's grip. So this is going to be a great drive from the two race clutch cars still in this, Hasse. And I think maybe the gloves might start to come off between the pair of them now that I think they've realised that the championship seems to have settled down for them. Like I said, maybe we'll have a close fight. Expecting, though, these drivers, I think, to come into the pits this time by. They've been consistently coming in just a little bit before the half-hour marks each time by. And yet, oh no, they don't actually. They carry on. So I think this will see them now to the magical 1 hour 30 mark. I mean, they won't need to take any splash and dash pit stops at the end.
Incredible, because they were actually off that for the other stints, and then all of a sudden they sort of just decided to, hey, we're just gonna, you know, have one stint that's that long enough to make it last till the end. That's well strategized by the race clutch drivers. My apologies. And looking at Hans Blankart here, he's taken tires. That's what he did on the last stop here. 1 minute and 20 spent in the pits overalls, and as such he's now back out on track, but behind Alvaro Fernandez, who's yet to take his third stop, of course, and that goes for all of the drivers ahead of him actually. So there should be positions to be gained for Hans Blankart. Question is just how many will it be? And up ahead the gap is now opening again here. Ben's Nemethi might have had a small moment, might have had a bit of traffic or something like that that allowed Peter Molnar to get back close to our race leader here. But it hasn't really worked out for Peter Molnar, as Jamie Conway is now exiting the pit lane as well, done with his final stop.
It's just really interesting, Hasse, the way this race is unfolding. We can now see these two cars coming into the pit stops. Tia Schlerer as well comes into the pits, and he was actually behind for most of the race, but now comes in on the mark to make it till the end without any further pit stops required. So good stuff from himself. We can just see Alvaro Fernandez going on by. You know what? This could actually help seal third place for Tio Schlerer, as long as the drivers in front of him that were on the road need to make an extra pit stop. It'll be very good indeed for the Frenchman.
And indeed, I think they will have to make another pit stop. We'll just have to see what the gaps are. James Ibram, Kamal Hashemi, separated by 20 seconds as well by now. So, as you can see, Nemethi, I think, manages to come out ahead of Peter Molnar, but not by a lot. Those two closer than they've been at any point, and Peter Molnar seems to have a good run. And if he'd been really cheeky, I think he actually could have gone for a very cheeky move as well there on Ben Nemethi. But of course, being teammates, you want to keep it gentlemanly. And most of all, you want to keep it orderly and make sure your contenders are actually finishing the race. And as such, probably a wise decision there from Peter Molnar. But he did get a very, very good run from the pit exit there. James Ibrahim's in the pits. He's got in before Kamal Hashemi. And Hashemi at the same time has put in a 146.67, which is a very good lap time as well. But being that he was 20 seconds down on Ibrahim, it's going to be difficult, I think, to say the least, about too much of that back. And especially problem being for Kamal Hashemi that he took tires, while James Ibram didn't. And Ibram's been, well, cool as you like, handling the tire management and has been able to pick the longest straw out of that battle, James. Or Edward. Yeah. James. I don't know why your name is James. You can call me Jesse then. We'll be Team Rocket.
Well, there is a certain James out there that has the last name May, but I'm no Captain Slowhass, so I don't know if I stand like that.
Excellent pun. Love it.
Anyway, shall we focus on the racing that's
going on? We'll do our best.
There's a race going on somewhere through this, but this is why I love you, Hasse. It's always great fun being in the comments box with you. And if you, as well, another little aside, if you do enjoy the work that me and Hasse do here on Simracersworld TV, next weekend, but on Sunday, we do have the Sunday GT Masters again, don't we, Hasse?
Yeah, we do indeed. That's a series that's going to go on until the month of December. And we've got the second half of that season going on at the moment. That's going to be a good one to catch indeed. We've actually got quite a stuff coming up this week. We got the virtual Bell Car series on Friday evening. We've got the Sunday Drivers MX5 series as well on Sunday, so a double header on Sunday, and then you'll be the one to decide for yourselves whether to go watch GT3s or to watch some Gentlemen the MX5 races. And then, not to forget, we have the SRW NASCAR Next Gen Cup Series starting with the Daytona 500 on Sunday, September the 5th. My apologies to my squeaky placey challenge that I commentate in. It's it's there. I really actually try to do my best to sit still, but anyone that knows me know that it's quite challenging for me not to move about. And again, I can only apologize for the squeaky chair. Someday I'll be able to leave squeaky chair behind and go on to a silent model. Today, however, is not that day, and we'll have to live with the sounds of squeaks. As I say that, Peter Molnar is keeping a leash on Ben Snamethi as we're still watching these two battle around. And Hans Blankhardt, all of a sudden, look at this, just a second behind Kamal Hashemi here.
Oh yeah, so this is really going to close in now, isn't it? Hans Blankhardt on a bit of a charge, has actually opted to take fresh tyres on this stop, so maybe this could be a good way to get back second place. Maybe Hans realised that if he stayed out on circuit on those old tyres, he was going to be too slow and lose out, but this time he's going to come out just behind Kamal, which he has, and now can set about trying to make the place on track, this time with the advantage of slightly fresher tyres. I say slightly fresher tyres because they're only about half an hour fresher. Al Hashemi, of course, one of the drivers that opted to take tyres at the midpoint of the race, along with James Ibram and Theo Schlerer. I do think, though, that for all intents and purposes, Hans Blankhardt taking the tyres has probably got Theo out of a position in terms of the end of the race, in terms of getting onto the podium place. I think that's the best he can finish. What can Hans do, though? Will he be able to get the advantage on Kamal into the first corner? Let's see the lines being taken. Let's see how much he can close in on the tyres that he's got. Look at how much he's running wide. He can keep his foot pinned in it, though, and actually closes in, but he doesn't want to do that too many more times, because it's not only does it get dirt on the tyres through this section, it means that you might be a little bit slow and suffering. It also is just very stressful. And I don't think any driver wants to make their race any more stressful, at least, than it needs to be.
No, and it's, let's just call it walking a thin line out there, because it very easily goes wrong as well. Hans Blankhardt might just be finding himself over pushing the car ever so slightly. I think he outbrakes himself a little bit into the hairpin there and loses critical time, because he was actually gaining nicely on Kamal Hashemi. And if he can just sit here in behind and sort of match the tempo while being close to Kamal, he's gonna apply the stress and the pressure to the American in front of him. He needs to make sure that he doesn't receive the pressure and the stress himself. Of course, Kamal Hashemi, a very proficient driver as well. It's not like it's an easy job keeping up here. And my apologies if I made it sound that way. That was not my intention. And let's see what happens here, because Kamal Hashemi got a very, very shoddy exit from the Mach, and they're gonna go 3 wide down into sunset. Here comes Hans Blankert up the inside, and he's gonna make the move, threading the needle, passing the traffic, getting the run on Kamal Hashemi, Hans Blankert. That was a brilliant move there, Edward.
That was a cracking overtake, but like we said, drivers don't necessarily want to make it any more stressful than they need to, but going 3 wide into sunset, definitely stressful, I think, to say the least. He manages to get the move done, though, nice and committed on the inside, and there wasn't really anything Kamal could do in that situation. Hans Blankert for Stage 1 Racing was just so fast coming through, got a great exit through Le Mans. Great run into the corner. You can see from Kamal where the damage was done, just on the run into the corner. Tries to power out nice and early, but gets a face full of dirty air. Means that he has to sort of delay the throttle application just a little bit. But we are, Hasse, into the final 20 minutes of the race. And it's, tell you what, it's absolutely flown by.
Absolutely so. It's gone really, really quickly. And we're into the final deciding phase here. And now it's going to be all up to Hans Blankert whether he's going to be able to keep the car out and running until the finish line. And if so, he'll be having good cards on his hand in terms of being able to take second place away from Kamal Hashemi, of course. If he needs to take another pit stop, that's going to be advantage Hashemi in a way that he's going to have no response to whatsoever. We'll just have to see. 0.6 of a second, by the way, is the gap between the two leaders. Here's Bent Nemethi, and we'll probably see Peter Molnar. There he is, in shot as well. The two race clutch cars. They've been like this for most of the race. And yet again, you can just see, I think it's lifting and coasting from Nemethi, who wants to make sure there's enough fuel in the car. And maybe Peter Molnar just acknowledging the fact that he's had the armchair right in behind. Has had an easier time saving the fuel he's needed. And by the way, thanks for the sweet commentaries on, well, our commentary in the booth here. That is much appreciated. Actually, our good colleague and lovely friend Peter Mackay has been with Radio Le Mans, doing Le Mans. He's been with them for the Nürburgring 24 hours as well this year. Something that another of our wonderful colleagues, Chas Drakert, actually attended last year. As someone has been off in the, I think that's Daniel Nunez who's been off in the hairpin, by the way. But just to say, congrats to Peter Mackay. It was amazing. I think I tuned into Radio Le Mans as I was following the race, and it's really funny to hear a broadcasting colleague of your own that you've spent many hours with in the booth all of a sudden be there on one of the biggest racing broadcasts of the season. So kudos to Peter for making it. You've made it, friend.
So I tell you what, though, like you were mentioning, there's been a lot of good broadcast talent here on Simracersworld TV, and we're very happy to, of course, talking you through this amazing LMP2 Apex Technologies Championship as we have a replay of Jamie Conway. Is it just a little bit too hot into the first corner? Yes, very loose again at the rear, but managing to rejoin the track safely. It's always scary, I think, probably more so for you than I, because you've probably experienced that a few times in the LMP2. Just how terrifying is it when the car's loose on you in this car?
It's terrifying. It's very terrifying. It's when you get out there on that gravel out there, you know that you have to sort of stay in it. But if you plan it too quickly, it's just gonna go on you. So it's all of a sudden you're a rally driver for a second and a half, and then you're back to being a track driver. It's not something I would advise people on, making their go-to strategy for the exit at turn 1 here at Sebring. That much is for sure. And Edward, have you ever done the 12 hours of Sebring?
Yes, but not in these in the prototypes. I've always done it or opted to do it in the GT categories. Did it 1 year in the GTE. Went all right. It was just a little bit of a madness at times. I think that was back in the day when we had the good old Daytona prototype. So it was certainly something. Seeing those rocketing up behind you and just launching it at you is, I think, definitely a bit different to how the LMP2 drivers approach things. And I did it last year as well in the GT3, which Hasse is a car that I'm very fond with and worked all right again. So maybe next time I'll try it in LMP2 car. Who knows?
Oh, you should do what you want. I've done it in the GT as well as in the LMP2, and it's certainly a blast in the LMP2. I think we actually managed to finish on the podium when we did it last year in the LMP2. Of course, it was not in top split. It wasn't anything close to top split. And another little anecdote here is we're coming into the final 15 minutes of the race, and don't worry, we'll keep our focus to where our focus needs to be come that time. But while we're in the corner of anecdotes, I would like to add one to the flurry of anecdotes that we're spinning out here at the moment. When we did the 24 hours of Spa this year with Team Simpac Racing, my car ended up in top split because we did the late start Saturday, last of the starts basically of all of the time slots, and there wasn't that many splits around, and we ended up the lowest seated car in top split. And I'll tell you, it was absolutely terrifying doing a 24-hour race in top split because everyone was so quick, everyone was so dialed, and everyone was just driving on a level where, if you're not used to driving in top split with drivers that go to that level, it's something new, and it's when doing an endurance race like that's not the nicest of learning environments. So that was a bit of an experience, I'd say, but proudly I can say I've done a special event in top split and not finished last.
Oh dear, so let's see, Hasse, maybe next time goes do best for you. Less terrifying being plunked into top split as the last time. I've done that a few times. It's never fun, is it? Never fun.
Well, the strange thing is that it is, I think, sort of fun. It's just like terrifying fun, like bungee jumping or a really big roller coaster, or climbing up the outside of a really tall building or something like that. It gets the adrenaline going time to time. But
speaking of adrenaline going, Hasse, look at this. Fighting at the front. Peter Molnar closing in on the Methy. The race is going on. The race has erupted. 2.5
tenths he closed on the last lap alone here. 14 minutes left to race. And you have to wonder if Peter Molnar's got a little bit extra fuel, he'll be able to push that a little bit harder. And that combined with the slipstream might just make him... think about whatever opportunities might arise to take a race win here. But Benson Methy, I think, doesn't go to win it in the end. It's going to be a feeling of something being ever so slightly taken away from you. Of course, Benson Methy looking at a championship win regardless here, I think, of whether it is first or second step on the podium in the end. Now, Theo Schleray is actually gaining, but that's on Jamie Conway. So that's not gonna matter that much in the end. What really could matter is that Hans Blanchard and Kamal Hashimi still within 2 seconds of one another. And we'll have to see whether Hans Blanchard has really turned up the fuel saving here for this final stint, or whether he'll have to do that splash and dash.
Yeah, and that's, I think, going to be the real question, isn't it? If he'll have to do the splash dash, or if he can last up until the end. Depending as well how long it's spent in the pits, maybe the likes of Theo Schleray could catch something from this race, and that could be all the difference needed to secure the lead in the AM class. That's the thing about the race being so close together, is that, not the race being so close together, but the championship being this close at this final stage, is that we don't really know who's going to be coming out on top until the checkered flag is waved. And even then, we probably won't know until some time after. Obviously, things like protests can be made, penalties could be applied. It's all a little bit dramatic at times, isn't it? As to the life of a championship organizer, I would not want to be trying to sort all of this out after all has been said and done, that's for certain.
No, and something we haven't touched upon is the fact that there is drop rounds to be calculated into the mix as well. So we might see a situation where all of a sudden with the drop score, it all turns out a little bit differently, but we don't really have the overview of that. We've heard from the organizers they will take care of drop scores as quickly as possible and have their final series results ready on the webpage as quickly as possible as well. But just a little note to the fact that there, of course, could be changes that we haven't really figured out, so to say, at the moment. Hans Blancard seems to be gaining on Kamal Hashimi for all I can see, but he needs to gain a little more than that. Again, if he's going to take that extra pit stop. We've got 11 minutes left to race here, Edward, and it seems quite orderly, except for the fact that the closest two cars on track are still the leading two pro cars, and yet we haven't really seen any of these two try anything on each other yet.
No, they haven't, have they? So what's going to happen though in the last stages? The battle has got closer than it ever has. I'm not sure, so I'm thinking that there's still a little twist in the tail yet to come as we find the final 10 minutes rapidly approaching. Benson Matthew leads Peter Molnar for the final race of the season. As of course sponsored by TPI and Apex Technologies, the series sponsor. Great to have so many wonderful partners along the journey as well. Without them, we wouldn't be able to bring you all of this exciting racing. Every single race this season has had one bit of drama, one way or another. And the racing has been absolutely top-notch. The level of competitor as well, really up there. Drivers 6K racing, comfortably above 6K racing, taking part. Does a lot as well. When to be classed as an AM in this championship, you can still have an I rating of just under 4,000. It boggles the mind, the level of driver we're seeing here. James Ebram, 3,800 I rating to his name.
Yeah, but look at this here. Nemethi is having to really deal with Peter Molnar in a way that he hasn't really had to at any point in this race. The gap just for a short moment was down to about 0.2 of a second. And then all of a sudden I think Peter Molnar felt the dirty air as they came into Le Mans. Now he's trying to gain back as much time as he can down into Sunset. He's making himself shown in the mirrors of Benson Nemethi there up ahead, so you have to wonder if there's going to be anything popping off here. 9 minutes of racing left to go here. Lap 62 we are on now. The drivers will be, I think they'll be hungry by this point to see the checkered flag, because I think they're beginning to get tired.
Yeah, that's the thing that you've very good to mention, is the fatigue aspect that the drivers could be feeling now. What will they be experiencing, though, when the checker flag is waved? Will it be elation for Benson Nemethi or pure ecstasy for Peter Molnar? Who's going to come out on top is the real question, and one that we will soon have the answer to with 8 minutes to go. But this Peter Molnar's just dropped back a little bit. I think Benson Nemethi's picked up the pace in this first half a lap. But of course, the slipstream allows Peter Molnar time to close in and a time to see if there's any way through. I don't know if there's any fuel saving going on at this stage, or if it is just full, flat-out racing. Just look at that, Molnar very wide of the apex there. Lost a lot of ground now to Benson Nemethi, which gives him breathing space for at least another lap before you'll expect 95 to close in again, Hasse.
Yeah, and Nemethi with an answer to your question as well there, Edward. Heavy fuel saving still going on. And I think that'll go on all the way to the line. I would not be surprised to see it. Benjamin, I think we'll be hoping to be able to break the toe just about now. Peter Molnar seems to be really attacking it. And if he overcooks the tires, just the slightest, you can see a second twitch there on the exit of sunset, as well as the sun is setting in the background. And it's all getting very picturesque into the final 7 minutes of racing here from Sebring. Who of these two drivers will win the Pro Class for this championship finale, this season finale? Oh, what a huge moment for Benjamin Matthew, who gets a big round of oversteer into the big bend. But he manages to keep it under control. He didn't lose too much time, saying that it was about 0.3 of a second that he lost. But I think it says quite a lot. Both of these drivers beginning to experience mistakes that are probably more related to their tires being quite worn by now. And ladies and gentlemen, keep your eyes peeled to this one, because I don't think we've seen the last twist of the tail, as you said earlier, Edward. There could be a late change here. The very lead of the race.
Yeah, I think you're right here, Hasse. We might see a little bit to come just yet as Peter Molnar leaves it late. But oftentimes he is very quick on the draw and trying to take the lead. Thrown a little bit offline on the run in, but does he get the exit out of Le Mans? Oh, very nice exit actually from Benjamin Matthew. Look at the sun definitely setting now, the glare coming through. This is why I love the day-night transitions on iRacing, because you get these wonderful views of the light coming through the windshield, the sun setting through sunset, and as the sun is sadly beginning to set on what has been an amazing championship. Every race, like I mentioned, brilliant from start to finish, and this is set to be no different. Peter Molnar taking out 0.6 of a second on that last lap as Hans Blankart comes into the pits. Where's Theo Schleri? Theo Schleri comes through into third place, and that could seal the championship in the last closing moments. I'm not sure if this is correct, but if so, that might have just done it for Theo.
Yeah, indeed. And Blankart now behind Álvaro Fernandez as well. So that'll be a three-way, or I thought it was going to be a three-way battle. It certainly isn't, because that is... Well, who is that in the 24 machine? Well, it's not the 24. Is that the 42? No, it's not the 42. Oh, it's Chris Barrett. So it's Chris Barrett, the third place driver. My apologies. That it's coming up on the rear end of this battle. He's a fair bit behind the leaders, and that's around 17, 18 seconds. So he probably wouldn't be having illusions about that, but look at that up ahead. Now there's a battle going on. Oh, and Blankart's trying to get past on Fernandez. Almost got it done right about there. Mind you, Hans Blankart will have fresher tires at this point than Álvaro Fernandez. There could be a close battle to the line here as up ahead. It's Benjamin Matthew, Peter Molnar just separated by less than 0.3 of a second as well, as we're coming in towards the final, 3.5 minutes of racing. Just about. While I managed to make myself sound Canadian for a second there, I've realized that's going to be just about, it's going to be 2 more laps. To the best of my head calculating skills, which are not amazing, so we'll see if they're good enough to stand the test of the simple test indeed here. I'm not quite sure, but I believe it'll be 2 more laps. And with that said, Blankart's having a look, but it's not gonna be an easy one, and certainly never is into Christensen. It looks like a place you can overtake. But once you get to it, it gets very difficult. Oh, Blankart! I think that might have cost Hans Blankart the chance to actually get past on Álvaro Fernandez. With a little bit of an off track there. Yeah, well, let's see about it.
So this is it. just runs too wide. Rear of the car stepping out and then loses the place. Maybe not a long track place, but still place nonetheless to Chris Barrett, who has now put a lap on Hans Blankart. Get this, Spencer Mathy coming through Le Mans. Or actually coming through Le Mans now, rather, with very close Peter Molnar. What will it be though when they come up to the line? Is there going to be one lap still to go? I'm not sure if there is. I think this could be. Actually, yes, I think there might be just one more lap on the cards here when the clock ticks down and down and down. I think we're going to see the white flag being waved, Hasse. Yes, we will. Or are we? Where is it? Is it there? Is it not? Is it there? Is it not? I can't see.
I can't see either.
So we might have another lap. I know it takes about 1:45 to come through. However, it was touch and go. Sometimes iRacing gives you an extra lap. It's gonna be close, isn't it, Hasse? Either way,
it's gonna be very close indeed. But we'll just have to see its point. Well, just still about half a second between the two here. And with that said, it is, I think, going to be difficult for Peter Molnar to get the right run on his teammate without risking it, of course. Because that's one thing they want to make sure they don't do anything silly on the final lap of the championship.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? This is the final round. Is there going to be a final chance for Peter Molnar to go through? Because Spencer Matthews has been doing a great job of just keeping that gap big enough to not worry. Look at that, the light shining off of the shark fins there. Oh, there's nothing better, is it, than the day-night transitions in iRacing. I'm just glad that we were able to see a lovely sunset finish to the championship. I think this is going to be the final lap here, Hasse. So as the cars round their way through Le Mans for what I expect to be the final time, we will see Benson Mathy come through Sunset Bend. Look at that, the sun shining nicely. The final time for Benson Mathy in this race and in this championship. The checkered flag is going to greet him, and he will take the race victory and the championship victory as well. Great stuff from the 47, who joins the likes of Maxime Brient as an Apex Technologies LMP2 Pro Class Champion. He's going to be very chuffed with that, I'm sure, as Peter Molnar comes through in second place, what expects to be as well second place in the championship. And depending on points lost by Peter Zuber, we might see Chris Barrett as well finish third right at the end of this championship season. And now focus shifts, doesn't it, Hasse, to the AM category. What a race it has been. A late twist in the tail as well has seen Theo Schlerer come through into third place for a crucial finish, one that could prove decisive at the end, because we're not entirely sure what the margin will be in this final round. Theo Schlerer had a 7-point advantage coming into this final race, and if memory serves right, previous rounds have seen around about 5 points difference from first to third in terms of bonus points accrued. So we'll see what happens. But James Ebram, nevertheless, will come and take the checkered flag, win the final race of the season here at Sebring. And pending championship results, this could be a championship winning drive from the Apex Tech Racing driver.
Kamal Hashmi gets through and well and good across the line for second place. It's a 1-2 for Apex Tech Racing and AM. And it's Jamie Conway who's come home for fourth in Pro as well. And I think pretty much rest of the field has come through as well. Here's Mark Winters, sixth place in AM as he is crossed the line as well. What a race. Edward has been great all the way through. Had a very atrocious first 5 minutes or so. Sort of set the tone for the rest of the race. And even though we've had some very, very good battles for the rest of the race as well. As well as the strategy coming into play as well. Oh, and Mark Winters manages to keep that. That is a very, very impressive save there on the grass. I don't think it was necessarily meant to be a touch either. A touch was when he saved it. A nice little way to round off the season. But a great race we have had indeed. And it's time for you to see some results. That sounded like something you'd say in like modern day business management. It's time for you to see some results. Anyway, results it is. It's Bent Nemethi for Race Clutch, taking the win in Pro, ahead of teammate Peter Molnar and Chris Barrett for Apex Tech Racing, third in Pro there. Winning AM is James Ibram, an Apex Tech Racing driver as well, in front of teammate Kamal Hashimi. Jamie Conway gets fourth in Pro, sixth overall there for Apex Tech Racing as well, while Theo Schleray gets, what's that, third? He gets on the podium indeed, as you said, Edward, for Virtual Best Racing, and we'll have to see just what that does for the championship standings in the end. Alvaro Fernandez gets fourth in AM ahead of Hans Blankard, ends up fifth. Mark Winters 6th, Rømer 7th, Carlos Ponce 8th in AM, Daniel Nunes 9th, Alex Roggenbuck in 10th place in AM, and then Jacob Money gets 11th in AM, and by the way, Peter Suba, Hugo Preto gets 5th and 6th in Pro. One of those abling to finish the race anyways. Peter Suba, of course, feeling ill towards the race, and we hope for the best of recoveries for Peter as well. Edward, how would you sum up this race here?
Oh, just brilliant, hasn't it? It's been a brilliant race, a brilliant championship as well. And you know what, Hasse, I can see plenty of drivers opting to come into the interview waiting room. So, shall we have a word with Benson Nemethi, who, after that race and after this season, has not only taken an extra race victory to add to its already impressive tally, but also the championship as well. Congratulations, you must be overjoyed with that, Benz.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was a really enjoyable race and a really enjoyable season, and quite favorable outcome. I really wasn't expecting winning this race, but yeah, in the end it turned out to be fine.
Yeah. Obviously, before we come to the monumental achievement of the championship, we can talk a bit about the race, and you were just the man to beat, weren't you? Pole position, leading virtually every single lap. What was your secret coming into this? Is it just maybe the setup was working for you? Was it a bit more practice put in? Or what was just the secret sauce for this evening?
I mean, for the official Sebring 12 hours, we practiced a lot, and we were doing quite well there. I think we finished P6 or P7 top split, so our setup and preparation was already quite good. So I just had to do like a half an hour of practice to get back to rhythm in this track. But yeah, I think most of the preparation was when I was practicing for the 12 hours.
And then what about the strategy as well? Because we saw that you and obviously Peter all came in a little bit earlier than the magical half-hour mark. How much of a job was it to save the fuel at the end?
We were expecting this. We calculated with a 16-lap stint, and after that we calculated with 3 17-lap stint. But actually the last stint even was 16 laps, so it was completely fine, honestly. Like, we could have done the first 2 stints like full pushing, actually, so yeah. It was...
So it's all under control in the end, Vince. Great to know. And now, a word on the championship. You've had, well, it's fair to say, an absolutely amazing run, especially in this final half of the season. You've really come into your own. And what was it, I think, that got you over the line in the end? Was there anything that sort of drove you on?
I think my teammates were actually a bit faster on pure pace. I think I was just a bit more consistent in terms of finishes. I think without the drop week, with the drop week, I was on the podium every time. So, and yeah, my teammates had some unfortunate incidents, and I think that was the key factor in this championship.
Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Your consistency has been really, really something to be proud of, because I think your worst finish was actually at the start of the season, where you got 25 points, and across the rest you've got nearly upwards of 30. You've even scored 40. I think the most points any driver has scored at the midway point of the season. So it's a very well-earned championship drive for you. Was there any highlights perhaps along the way that you can remember?
I really enjoyed the Monza race. I think that was my first win as well. And then there it was just so close with everyone. And yeah, there was a lot of stuff happening all the time. So yeah, I really enjoyed Monza.
Yeah, that was a very exciting race. I can remember that one very fondly. Myself and Ches Drake in the booth for that one. I hope we can see plenty more races like that in subsequent seasons, and hope to see you in season 3 as well, Bence.
Yeah, we will see.
Yeah. And before we, of course, say goodbye to you, as championship victor, the floor is yours if you've got anyone you'd like to shout out.
I think just the usual. Like, I would like to give a shout out to my team who have me prepare for every event, and you know, it's a lot more fun to prepare for something together than alone. So yeah, give a shout out to my teammates, I guess.
Absolutely. The amount of race clutch 1-2-3s I've had to talk over. It's been a very, very strong performance from you and all your teammates, Benson. I'm sure they'll be very happy with that. In fact, we'll bid you goodbye, Benson, then have a word with another of your teammates, Peter Molnar.
Yep. See you guys.
So, as one race clutch driver exits the booth, another one shall join. And Hasse, you've just brought in Peter Molnar. Why don't you have a word with him?
Thank you.
Hello, guys.
Thank you, Edward, and hello, Peter. Welcome to the booth, and thanks for joining us for this post-race interview. It was a close fight between yourself and Bench, well, basically for the entirety of the race, with hardly ever more than 2 seconds separating you. It got very close at the end, and you looked like you were looking for an opportunity to get past your teammate there. How was it feeling throughout the last laps of the race?
Yeah, it was definitely a close race, but for us it wasn't that exciting because we agreed not to fight. So I know it's a bit of a bad thing, but we just wanted to bring it home.
That makes perfect sense. It also looked like a very, very fast formation drive at times out there, and we heard a bit of strategy talk as well from Ben. That it was maybe a little bit more simple, getting it to the line with the fuel that you anticipated?
In a sense that we expected the last stint to be 17 laps as well, but then it went 1 lap shorter. So in that sense it was easier because we didn't have to lift that much. But yeah, it was close. I was watching it on caps and it said, I think, 65.93 laps. So it was close to being 1 more. So we weren't that off with our calculation.
Well, head on the nail there, Peter. Congratulations on a great on a great season and a great second place here, a great podium finish to round it off. Before we let you go and celebrate with the team in style, is there anyone you'd like to give a thanks or a shout out to here on air?
I think I would like to thank the league organizers for organizing a great league, and you guys as well for the broadcast.
Well, thanks, Peter, for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you through the booth for an interview, and do feel free to join us again in the coming seasons. Congratulations on a strong race, strong season, and with that, enjoy the evening as well.
Thank you. Good evening.
So that was Peter Molnar. We'll go on with our final pro finisher or pro podium finisher, of course, Edward May is ready to have a word with Chris Barrett.
Yeah, Chris, well done on that third place finish. You must be very pleased with that hard fought drive from you, but you got the rewards in the end.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it was a bit disappointing to be 20 seconds off the lead pack at the end, but I think it was a well-driven race. Probably one of my best performances of the season, even though it was a bit boring. Really pleased with it. I think it shows the constant improvements that we've had. And it was nice to get up there kind of on my own merit rather than being pulled along by a teammate like I have been the past couple of races.
I mean, you said it was one of your best efforts all season, but didn't you run away? Didn't you win the race last time out?
That's true, but I think Race Clutch really turned up with their A game on today. Last at Red Bull Ring, I think they hadn't had much practice, but we knew Sebring was going to be one of their strong tracks. So to grab a third place out of it, I think was pretty good for us, and it shows the rate of improvement we've had through the season compared to where we were at the first couple of races. It's really great.
Yeah, definitely. And how was the championship question forming in your mind? Were you thinking perhaps about trying to snatch something from it? Obviously came into this not too far from Peter Molnar in third place.
Yeah, of course it was on my mind. I knew I had to beat Peter Molnar, so I was quite aggressive into turn one. I knew if we didn't break them up, the Race Clutch guys, then they're just going to run away with it. So I was pleased to get into third place. I was hoping I could cling on in the draft and then maybe make something happen at the end, but ultimately just didn't really have the pace. And then I was hoping in the pit stops they wouldn't take tyres and I'd be able to jump them and make something happen, but they didn't take tyres either, so it was kind of that at that point. But still pretty pleased with it. And I think I come a fourth place in the championship is pretty good. I wouldn't have expected that at the start of the season.
Yeah, definitely considering the level of driver in this championship, that's a very good achievement from yourself. And obviously you are an Apex Tech Racing driver, but I've been asking everybody that's jumped into the comments box, will we see you for a season 3?
Yes, absolutely, no doubt about it. It's a lot of fun. I'd never really driven this car before the start of the season when Jamie asked me if I wanted to come and join for a race. Very glad I did. It's a great car, great competitors, and yeah, hopefully we can have an even better season next, probably in the winter.
Yeah, and we'll hope to see you again because you're definitely one of the on-form drivers after getting good race results in the final few rounds. I think, have you got a podium in the last 3, if memory serves right, Chris?
Yep, that's right. I think it's 2 wins and a third place. And before that, it was kind of improving 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th. So yeah, definitely on an upward trend. And I think as a team, we've really worked together well. I've just got to thank Hugo, Jamie, James, and Hasse really for being absolutely great teammates. We've all pushed each other. And yeah, we've got a lot to look forward to in the future seasons. Also want to say thank you to my girlfriend Annabelle for putting up with me on a Sunday evening doing all this driving. It's her birthday on Tuesday, so happy birthday for then, Annabelle. Thanks for putting up with that.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful message, Chris, and thank you as well for joining us in the commentary box after what was a great season finale. Well done as well on 4th place in what's been a very hotly contested championship. You can be very well proud of that. Goodbye.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, Chris Barrett there leaving the commentary box, and now we have driver and potential champion to have a word with. It's not confirmed yet, but depending on the way the results go and the way the drop rounds are calculated, James Sebring, you might be the champion. I'm not sure if you know any more than I do on this matter.
Yeah, I've got 39 points from this round. Teo got 31. I needed to beat him by 8 points, which I did, so I've beaten him by 1 point to win. I needed to get the clean bonus.
So that was what it was it just you driving cleanly, not getting any off tracks, and that has been the difference maker in securing the championship victory?
Yeah, fastest lap, pole position, and no off tracks, and that's what I needed to win.
Oh, that is absolutely brilliant. I'm sure you can be well pleased with that. And just talk us the journey through the sea. Actually, no, let's not do that first. We're getting carried away with that. Talk us first through that race, because that was amazing stuff. You had a bit of a setback early on, but you came through brilliantly.
Yeah, the first lap was a little bit scary, having Hugo and Jamie have a bit of contact, so they ended up sort of stopping right in front of me. Luckily, I gave myself enough space between everyone just to give myself enough time to avoid that. And that's where I got my one off track from, was going onto the grass to avoid that. So the whole rest of the race was no incidents at all, which is so huge for this race. And from there, it was just maintaining fuel levels the whole race. It was probably quite boring to watch at times. I was saving like 0.3 liters a lap, if not a bit more, to make it to 17 laps in the first stint, as well as the second stint. And the last two stints were both 16s, where I could use quite a bit more fuel. And yeah, the third stint, I made sure I got fastest lap as well in class, so that I got that point. And then the final stint was just make it to the end, no incident points, and just consolidate what I had, just really drive within my limits, don't need to push anything.
And then on the rest was history, isn't it? You managed to secure a very hard-fought championship victory. And how does this compare to last season? Because if memory serves right, you were really up there right up until the final few rounds. And was that maybe weighing on your mind at this stage of the championship?
I wouldn't say it was on my mind. The only thing that was on my mind is last season at this track, I was taken out before the start line. So my main focus was survive lap 1, which I did. And I didn't really think too much about last season. I guess the difference between last season and this season is I kind of had my collapse in sort of near the middle and the beginning rather than at the end. And it wasn't quite as bad a collapse as it was last season. So it didn't cost me so much, but it could have been a lot easier. I made it difficult for myself, for sure. Losing the wins at Spa and Monza when I had them pretty sewn up was not great, to say the least. So it could have been easier than I made it, but I'm glad I did actually end up making it and winning, because I would have been very, very annoyed with myself if I'd let two in a row slip, especially as I'll be in the Pro Championship next season. I don't think I can quite keep up with the race clutch guys just yet, especially here. They were very quick today. I couldn't do anything about that once I'd sort of had the first lap sort of shenanigans out of the way.
You never know, James. You'll never know. You have been steadily improving as the season's gone on, climbing up the ranks. You were only one position away, let's not forget, from the overall podium, so don't count yourself out just yet. I reckon there's still a bit more to come from you just yet, mate. But, of course, you are the Championship leader now. Thank you for the confirmation. If there's anybody you'd like to shout out here on SRW TV, the floor is yours, mate.
Yeah, I'll shout out to my parents for watching every single round religiously, and my sister as well. I know I'll have a Skype call with them afterwards for them to congratulate me. I'll also thank G1 for watching as well, because I'm sure her support made a massive difference and definitely got me through the first lap. And obviously you guys for putting on a great show all season long. So yeah, I've got to thank you guys for sure. And the team. Yeah, I've got to thank the team as well. Huge support from them, and all the sponsors, and EJ as well for not only making this team, EJ and Ryan for making this team, a reality, but also running this league and putting so much time and effort and money into this as well. So they really deserve a lot of credit for what they've put on here.
Yeah, and of course, thank you to you, James, for providing us with such excellent entertainment. I'm guessing, I think you've already confirmed it, we'll be seeing you for Season 3?
Yes, I will be there for Season 3.
Definitely. In the pro colours, no less. Great to have a chat with you, James, and best of luck for next season. But first things first, go and celebrate this championship victory. You've earned it, mate.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
So, Hasse, James Ibram exits the comments box, and I see you've brought in second place in the final race of the season. Not sure where this has put Kamal Hashimi in terms of the championship, but a cracking drive for him nonetheless, and I think he's just about to have a word with you now, Hasse.
Absolutely. So, Kamal, welcome to the booth. A pleasure to have you along, and congratulations on second place here in the season finale.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, thank you. Championship-wise, I don't think that I'm close to top 3, but, you know, James is up there, so that was priority for me.
And nice to hear it's a satisfactory result for the team in that sense. How did you feel the race progressed on your part?
Oh, the start was crazy. I need to watch the replay. I'm not sure what happened, but I was lucky I got out of that with no contacts. But it was good. I over saved fuel, so at the end of the race I had 4 liters, 5 liters extra. So that was really good to know that I was playing it safe and still maintain pace. So it was good. It was honestly like, we didn't really fight anyone. I knew Hans was on the wrong strategy, so I kind of just let him go. I didn't really want to fight him too much just because it would benefit us if he came out in front of Theo, but it didn't work out that way. But, you know, it was still good. It was good fun.
Indeed, that's good to hear. Well, I guess we've heard much from your teammate as well, and just a short question at the end of it here, can we expect to see you back for Season 3 as well?
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to Season 3. James and I will probably be on the pro section just because of our ratings have just increased like crazy this season. And yeah, so it'll probably be like some better competition, better, closer fights. But man, these race clutch guys are crazy fast. So we'll see. Lots of practice ahead of us.
Indeed, you'll be up against it. And to the best of luck for that. Kamal, such a pleasure having you in the booth. Finally, after many races, I've commentated with you in the Sunday GT3 Masters as well over the few seasons there. You've been taking part, but yeah, pleasure to get to talk to you, and thanks for joining us in the booth for this short interview. And at the end of it, before we let you off the hook, is there anyone you'd like to give a thanks or a shout out to here?
Oh yeah, huge shout out to just the whole ATR team, Jamie and Chris and Hugo and Nuno, and all of those guys taught us a lot this season. I feel like overall the team has just progressed to like a crazy level. So it's only the sky's the limit here. So you know, looking forward to just continue working with them. Thanks to all our sponsors. Thanks for the people who sponsored the race, and also I just wanted to say it was good to have such a close fight with Theo and James. I'm pretty sure it came down to like 1 point or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but it was really close fight. So good job on Theo. He didn't make it to the interview booth, so but yeah, I just wanted to congratulate him on putting on such a good performance throughout the season. So.
Well, gentlemen, indeed, Kamal, that's beautiful. Indeed, it seems it is a single point having decided the AM Championship. So closer than close in the end. Thank you for joining us for this post-race interview, and all the best.
Awesome. Thanks for commentating and everything. So hopefully we'll see you guys next season.
Well, my pleasure. And well, hopefully I'll be, if I'm available schedule-wise, I'll be aiming to be on the grid for Season 3. I love this car.
It's so fun.
It is. It really is. But Kamal, thanks for joining us, and we'll be having to round off the broadcast with that as well. But that was Kamal Hashemi joining us for the final of our interviews, and Edward here on the last bits and bobs of this broadcast, and of this season as well. Do you have anything you want to add?
Yes, Hasse, this has been a brilliant championship to be a part of. All the way from the first round of the first season at Daytona up until now, the final round of the second season here at Sebring. Each race has been really entertaining, really thoroughly enjoyable to be a part of in the commentary box. So I'm really looking forward to the potential of Season 3 here on Simracersworld TV. Of course, those discussions are hopefully going to be happening in due course, but I'm just really glad to have been a part of this for 2 seasons. Hopefully we've got another one, and hopefully I'll be in the commentary box for that as well, because I'll tell you what, this has been some of the best racing I've seen, especially in prototypes on iRacing that I've had the pleasure of commentating on.
So I'm glad I got the chance to get in on this as well. If it was just for one round, it's been one very good round to watch as well. I hope you all feel the same way. If you do leave us a like and subscribe if you want to see more iRacing broadcasts here on Simracersworld TV. We might have mentioned it before, but I'll just quickly say again, on Friday we've got the Bell Car Series, the virtual Bell Car Series, with their 3-hour race from the Nürburgring GP stretch. It will be me and Markus Jestal in the booth for that one. We've got the Sunday Drivers MX5 Series from Phoenix with Jack Oliphant and Jack Werrell, so it's Jack squared for that broadcast. And then me and Edward will be back for the Sunday GT Masters from Road America. That's on Sunday as well. So plenty of good action here on Sim Racers World to catch this week. My name's Hasse Rømer. I've been joined by Edward May. It's been our absolute utmost of pleasures having you all along. Thanks to TPI for sponsoring this race. Thanks to Apex Technologies for hosting the series. And, well, with that said, until next time, take care, have fun, bye-bye.